Great. Call the meeting to order. First is any public comments.
We need to do the approval of the agenda first,
Oh, okay.
and then we'll do public comment.
Oh, I need a lot of direction, clearly.
It's your first time.
Yeah.
Hi. Do we really need to approve the agenda? Didn't we approve the whole agenda last time?
Oh, I don't know, it was on the thing. From the Lori.
Well,
We
then
complete the agenda.
we can approve it again.
Timer, we still on the agenda.
Yeah.
Are we still on the agenda?
There's a new agenda.
Okay.
There's a new one.
Yeah.
Move that we approve the agenda.
Didn't.
Second.
I didn't get a new one.
All in favor?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, agenda approved.
Not in paper format.
Okay. First
I can
order
go make copies.
is order of business is public comment. Comments?
My iPad.
No?
I brought mine.
The Lori's made, I'm sorry, the new agenda that got sent out was sent electronically only. Lori's getting copies now, so we'll be able to hand them out.
Okay.
And when we do get started with the presentations, I'm going to change the order a little bit and have Jeff go first because he's got a following meeting. So whenever you're ready. You ready?
So he's number 67.
We'll start number 6 then.
Right.
Y'all ready?
Yep.
All right. Thank you. Thank you for having me. Jeff Adams, Community Development Director of the Community Development Department. And I first want to start with the highlight. We got a new vehicle. Yes, it's rare for us and it's a hand-me-down from police department, but we got a new vehicle. This was actually in my first budget, 2018, for me to get a new vehicle. And I'm finally getting a new vehicle. And it took about, I'd say 6 months to get the stickers or, all the decals removed from the vehicle. And I was denied because I had put in for my budget for this past year to get it redone like this. But
Notice the Georgia.
I was denied. Anyhow, thanks for having me. I am excited. This is I don't know if you've seen my other one that's out there. The mildew machine is what we call it. But it was the old, I don't even know where it came from, but it was, you put a mask on, it wasn't for COVID reasons.
It really is that bad and it just sits there all the time now. So we're going to be getting rid of it.
So it's going to go out on, what is it?
We're Gov Deals.
Yeah, okay, Gov Deals. If you're wanting it, we'll show you it after for Gov Deals. So anyhow, the Community Development Department is me. This is my 4th year. Alton Butler, I don't know how fortunate we are to have Alton Butler as our building official. He is actually only working for us right now, which is, what he's done over the last 3 years. Then we have Katie Hillenhagen, who does a great job, has seen us through, I think she's now up to 3 LUBA cases. And then we have a new planner, Robert St. Clair. And if you think Alton is special, this is what's special. We're the only department in all of Clatsop County to be fully staffed in development services. If you look up and down the coast, another thing we'll talk about here in just a minute, but it's very difficult to find planners. It's very difficult to find building officials, and administrative staff are tough to keep. So major accomplishments for this past year. I just want to start off completion of the city's first transportation system plan, which will be going before you for adoption here in the next month or so. Launch of the code audit and visioning process that we started with the consultants. Track 1 zoning updates, those first series of zoning updates that came through. And then, like I said, we've had two just in this past year, LUBA cases that we've successfully defended at the state level, and brought on a new planner position to help us do planning so we can get to some of these major budget items that we're looking at.
Appreciate it.
And record year for permitting and review processing. And so if you look at the 2013, last 10 years, that's building. And just, thanks, Justin. So that shows the growth in the building revenue. Planning revenue stays about the same. It doesn't change that much, but you can see our growth. That 22, 23 is the projected. So I think it's going to be up there around the record numbers from last year, but it just shows you how busy we are. We're doing about 2 to 3 times the number of permits that when I first arrived here in building alone. This is looking back at 21 and 22 budget year expenditures. The right side is pretty much our staffing, salaries, and all of the insurance and things that go along with that. Over 50% in that. But from our operating budget, you'll see the big items there of the TSP, of visioning. And then, of course, that purple is the consultant professional, which is I call our legal. That's majority legal. And so how has that changed? Over for the 22-23 budget. I'll get to that in just one second, the details of it. But mainly, we pretty much stayed about the same over there on the right side and the salaries department. But you'll also see a friendly site that we're asking for less money than we did last year. And then the major is the consultant professional, stays about 1/3 of that operating budget. What's switched up is TSB will phase out of that. And we're looking at the hazard mitigation, which is called the Cola North Main Stabilization Project. That'll be the major grant portion of the work coming up this year. And then you'll see an increase in our Crest Regional Planning support. And I'll talk a little bit about that as well. But that's our big areas. And then, of course, the code audit, the red on there is our other big planning project coming up. One thing I want to point out, over the last 2 years, this is looking at how that one purple section is consultant legal fees has shaped out. We spent over the past 2 years about 50% of our legal consultant budget on the Roberts Haystack LUBA appeals and other appeals with the Roberts. And then Harrison and Najimi, often called Nicholson Plan Development, that's about 20% of our budget. Board management plan, about 10%. And then all of the rest of our legal fees for Bill to do every other planning thing, attending meetings, doing anything else in planning, that's only about a little less than 20% of our budget. That shows you the effect that LUBA and appeals has on my budget. It's probably 1/4 of my budget right now. Operating budget, that is. So what's coming up? What are we looking at for the next year? Completion of the code audit and visioning process, which will then lead into development code revisions. We'll likely have some code recommended comprehensive plan and unified development ordinance revisions coming out of that. Those will be coming following in the pipeline. Third, workforce housing. So we are one of the ones, the luxury of having a full staff right now, but will we keep that? I doubt it very seriously, the way that the workforce is going right now and replacing those. Main key with problem is if you go up and you ask any other jurisdiction, as Brandon's been so kind to go up and meet all the other jurisdictions and introduce regional workforce housing concept, they'll tell you that they're having a tough time hiring and keeping people. And mainly housing is the key to that. So they've started back the regional elected official meetings. Those are going to be held quarterly. We'll be speaking on that affordable housing issue at that, and then promoting a regional meeting of just a sole standalone meeting to talk about affordable workforce housing in likely July on that. Oh, elementary school and park project, that's another big one coming down the pipe. That'll also likely have planning zoning implications, as well as we'll likely have some zoning amendment or a zoning kind of variance for that, for the parking. 5, City Hall, Public Safety, EOS, still out there. And next steps in that will also be part of that. The Cola North Bank Stabilization Project, we're working with Crest right now on funding for that, for hazard mitigation funding through FEMA. Drone shoreline mapping, we just went out for that, and we've put out the notice of intent to award to that. And that also Crest local, who did one drone project for us already, they put in, and we've are going into contract with them on that project. And that'll be a 3-year project. So we plan to do it at least 3 years and see how that plays out. And likely we'll be doing that drone mapping yearly, just to see the erosion and how the different shoreline protection affects that projects. E-permit planning review. So right now we've gone to e-permitting, and we'll have a work session at the next one to show people how to kind of find that. But part of this is all about, trying to make it as transparent and easy for users, from citizens to anyone, to find out about permitting information. E-permitting, the state permitting process, allows anyone to kind of look up the different projects and see what's out there. But we are also going to plan review. So electronic plan review, where Alton and all of us will review plans online. It's an easier way for all of us to work on projects and keep the flow going. We'll be doing that here in June. So text and video tutorials. So we're also going to we've started doing some at least text brochures and step-by-step tutorials on how to make the process easier for people. And so we're going to be upping that now that we've got Robert on board, and we can make that available for people, video tutorials as well. And then we're going to have project pages. So I know you've seen them on some of the more controversial ones on the appeals, where we list every single item, every single public comment. We'll be doing that for most of our, if not all of our projects coming up. We'll have their individual standalone project pages. And so we're trying to make everything, like I said, more user-friendly and available. Working on that electronic archive and making that more available as well. I'll also walk you through next month at the session, not just how to get the e-permitting side of things, but also there's a lot of information just on our GIS pages, and just to remind everyone how to get to that as well. And so really that's basically it. I think I touched on all the major projects line by line in the document, where we phased out of, say, the big money that was put into the TSP and the visioning. Now that's going over to code audit and to the FEMA grant project for the ECOLA North Bank. That's really our major ones. We're staying about the same on the consultant fee line item. And I don't see that. Hopefully it'll stay about the same. We're phasing out, hopefully, of the one Harrison, Najimi, the Nicholson, hopefully seen that through. We still have a lot to deal with in Roberts, but we'll see if another one comes up. Any questions on this? Or
I have two. First, just came out, you're talking about the drone project.
Yeah.
Is State Parks involved, or are they aware of this?
They aren't yet, but we will run it by them. Narayan, who works quite a bit, he's their drone pilot for Crest, does a lot of projects that has to work through that kind of license. You know, they have to get approval through state parks.
I'm sure they do. I was just curious so that they can see the stuff that we're doing for them.
Yeah, we've actually talked with them about it when we started, when they were down touring it's not the new guy, they replaced the new guy when they were introduced the last new guy. And so they've got a new shoreline for our area. He just joined them. So we'll contact him probably next week to talk to him about that.
Okay, the other thing is, am I understanding right that the line item consultant tree permits, the arborist?
Yeah, so there is a tree, there's a special one for that. That is the one right below consult professional. Yeah, so same one, just right below that. It says consultant tree permits. That's our city arborist for private side project.
I'm thinking that since that's going up, shouldn't that amount go up? And that's where we might want to put some more effort, and so that when we need him, we can hire him quickly and not have to worry about.
We can, on that note, a great, we've had talks with Jeff recently, and we're moving to kind of a different model on how we're going to do reporting. So he's going to do what he calls a full report for everything that we require a full report, but every other project he's going to do minor reports. So we didn't have him do everything, and you know if it's within the building footprint or certain ones that were emergency tree type thing where we didn't, he will do every one now on. So either a minor or major, and by doing that, he's packaging all of those minors into one trip. And so he can come weekly. So instead of us just sending him intermittently, we're sending it to him every Friday and doing a major minor kind of process. So I think we will, it'd be nice to have more funds in that area. I'm happy to take any more funds towards the city arborist funds. But I think that we've worked out a good agreement with him that he's, he won't, his big fee is that he has to come down here, because he works out of Manzanita. And so if he's got a more timely kind of thing, process towards that.
Even with that, I was just noticing that what we have allocated in the past 3 years, it looks like, is very flat. But the amount of construction that we have is considerably higher. So I think that should match the fact that we're growing new construction, and there's been a lot of cutting. And I think having his appearance as needed so that the budget can cover that. So I would say let's boost that a little bit.
Okay. All for that. Boost any number you got there. Anything else? And the building fund, we can go to that, but it's the same pretty much every year. Hope to keep Alton as long as we can. He has discussed going to part-time ever since I've been here, but we will hope to keep him he's as busy right now. And I think staying and working in one place, he's happy with that. I think we'll see him sort out to other areas. He does still covers other areas when they're on vacation and things, but we're not going to actively seek that for his services elsewhere. And then that affordable housing fund, I touched on that we have about 250,000 out there, and we spent it on CVARC back in 2018. And that's part of that discussion as we will have it with the regional housing.
I guess One other thought that just popped in was the having a code enforcement officer now. Will that increase your time or will it decrease it or?
I don't think so. I hope we've waited over a year, I think, and great to have support in that area. So hopefully that will relieve some of our hours.
Perfect, good.
Question about the legal costs. I don't know if you can, have your crystal ball, but do you foresee any more increase in legal costs, especially with the Roberts situation?
I hope not. I hope that, it will continue. Maybe from the rest of my career. But I do see that it will continue for a while. And that's what I've just kind of anticipated and projected. But like I said, the one other of our big ones, I think, is fading away. Now, not to say others won't come into play, but that's also why we're doing the code audit and to address some of the language issues. I think that's part of it, but I do think that, like you said, Nancy, we have some of those, they're civil matters as much as they are our matters. And so what we end up, I think Bill does a very savvy job of trying to keep us out of those arguments and those phrases as much as possible, but there's still, wants to protect our interest in that. And so it will continue, I think, as much as I'd like to see it fade out. I don't know how much people realize that, I've showed you the legal side of things, how much it costs our consultant, but how much it costs our staff time in putting together a LUBA record and all of that. The last one we just got done sending it out today, it took hours of my time, Katie's time. Jen helps out with that as well. Getting those records together, thousands of page documents and up to loop. And then of course they'll appeal, and it's a long process. And so, yeah, I think it's going to continue at least at that level for a little while.
So did you increase your request at all for the legal costs?
I think it's the same or maybe even a little less. It's just a little less.
15 to 90.
Yeah. So if you have children or grandchildren, go into law. That's all. There's a future there.
Thank you.
Yeah. All right. Thank you all.
Thank you, Joe.
Thank you.
Only needs more lawyers.
Yeah, sure.
Next up is the general funds resources.
Okay. So turn your attention to page 14. So the general fund resources are comprised mostly of the top 10 categories you see here. And obviously transient room tax in the general fund is the major revenue stream at 74%. If you look at page 15, you can see that I am budgeting 5.5 million over the 3 funds that our transient room tax goes into. It goes into the general fund, it goes into tourism and arts fund, and then into our transient room tax fund. And so it's divvied up between those 3. The general fund portion is $4,537,500.
Are you?
And I based that estimate on looking back to the year 2021, where we got $5,528,363 in revenue. So, and this year that we're having right now is surpassing, at least the first quarter is surpassing this, the quarter that's from 2021. So I feel comfortable with that estimate. And so, it's even a little less than what we got in 21. So that's how I arrived at that. And then in the general fund, I'm estimating property tax at $748,775. This is estimated by applying a 3% increase. And so that's basically what it is. We get as new construction comes on, of course, that adds to the assessed value. And so that would show an increase too, but I don't try to estimate that. I just rely on the 3%. And then the third revenue, franchise fees, that is for the use of our right-of-ways by utility companies. So when you have gas lines in the right-of-way or power poles, utilities pay us for that use. And this one I estimate, I look back at the historical trends, like 10 years, and I just kind of see where I'm comfortable. And that's $201,000 this year. Planning revenues, these are the combined ones. Our short-term rental permits were increased to $500 annually from $75. And so that's bringing in quite a bit of revenue. And then the other planning fees and are included here, the local planning fee, planning, and short-term rental permits. Those are the three revenues here from our community development department. And then we have the fifth revenue stream, state revenues, $120,537 I'm estimating. I base this on League of Oregon Cities. They give us budget data on the amount that they think will be raised per capita. And so this actually has gone down a little bit because our population decreased. So we're not going to receive as much money anymore due to our population estimate being reduced. So, but that's at $120,537. Business licenses, again, I use like historical trends to estimate that. So that's at 76,000. Court fines is the same thing. I look at the trends and base it on that. And that's at 76,000 as well. Interest income, when I was estimating this, rates were not going up. They have since risen. We also have more money in the bank now. So this is kind of, it's a combination of things, you know, the amount that we have in the bank and then the interest rate that I thought would be in effect at the time. So that's what that is. Land leases, we rent some of our property to the antennas. What are those called?
Cell towers.
Cell towers.
Cell antennas.
Yeah. And then we have a little bit of property that's leased by Stephanie Inn as well. So that's what makes that up. And those are fixed fees. So that's easy to estimate due to the contracts that we have in place. And then finally, we have parking lot maintenance at $38,061. And so those 10 items make up the most, that's the most revenue in the general fund. And it's total $6,023,588. And that's 99% our total revenue after you take away transfers in and grants. I don't factor those in because they are not a reliable source of revenue and not naturally always recurring. So that is the revenue in the general fund. Look at page 26 and 27. You'll see all the various individual items there. Those 10 categories. So total resources, page 27, $9,035,443 is estimated for 2023.
I may ask a couple of questions.
Of course.
The 3% property tax increase, how'd you come up with 3%?
That's measure, what is it? Measure 51, measure 5.
State, yeah.
Yeah, it's state
That's the limit.
law,
That's the limit.
Okay,
and it always goes up through.
but yeah. And the population decline, what percentage was that?
I don't know the percentage, but what are we, I think we're 1498 now.
Like 200 people.
Yeah.
Hmm.
From the census.
Past year? Or since-
That was from the census.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was performed.
Thank you.
Any other questions on revenue side?
Hey Lori, this is Greg. Where do I see the revenue from the RV park? Am I missing that somewhere? Where do you-
We'll cover it later. It's in its own fund.
Okay, that's what I thought.
Move on to non-departmental and the general fund. Okay, that's page 41. This fund has materials and services expenditures. And that's derived from our internal service funds where we cost out like management, Bruce and Jennifer, Public Works, my department, finance, then we have central services, and then we have IT. So all of those services are being provided to the rest of the departments in the city. And so we charge out a portion to each fund, and this is the general fund's portion, $772,885.
And Rusty's getting like real thin. It's how many times we've cloned him.
And then we have transfers out to other funds. We always have a transfer to debt service and to the roads fund. See, we're going to send the general reserve 700,000 this year. And then storm drain needed a little revenue to fill the gap between revenues and expenditures of $27,621. And then we have a 10% contingency of $695,361. And that adds up to 2.8 million.
And the 700,000, the council goal was to do $400,000 a year. We've tried to exceed that every opportunity we can.
I think there was a question about this at our coffee with the counselors this morning about why there's so much more in the ending fund balance this year than it was adopted last year. Can somebody speak to that?
There isn't less.
No, it was 280 last year. You're talking about the ending fund balance?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And now we have 790.
Basically, that's just what's left over at the end of the day. But it's because of our beginning fund balance is so much higher. And that's just an accumulation of things like related pretty much to COVID.
So it's because we were so conservative in the last couple of years.
Yes.
Okay.
General Reserve Fund.
Okay, that's page 43. Talking about this, showing a transfer in from the general fund here. We started with 1.7 million, and that will, next year, that will bring us up to 2.4 million in this reserve fund.
General Fund Public Safety Department, 38.
Jason is going to help us with that.
Good afternoon. Thank you very much for your time. So as you can see in my budget,
Page are we on?
38.
there's an increase, or I'm asking for another officer. And I've been here just about 10 years. It will be 10 years in July. And as you may see in my officers, they are being run ragged, and that includes me. And the biggest downfall is that I haven't been able to literally do a lot of the chief work that I should be doing for the city. And that also goes for my lieutenant, just because we've had 51% increase in calls since I started in 2013. That's 1,064 calls that have increased since I first started. And that's a myriad of different things, but we all know that with the swelling in Portland, they're pushing down here, and we don't have a quiet time anymore. It picks up. I mean, you look at just last week, we had 2 stolen cars come through town that caused pursuits, and that was myself and my lieutenant working, covering the shifts, because we had an officer that was sick, an officer whose wife had had surgery, an officer was on vacation, and an officer at the academy. So we were down half of our department. And so that equates to my lieutenant and I are covering shifts. And yesterday was my first day off in almost 30 days.
Jesus.
And last week, 5 of the 7 days, I worked 14-hour shifts. And that's just not going to be sustainable for our city, you know, and it shows on my officers too. And the biggest thing we want to keep for our officers is keep them. Retention is something that each of the cities is always working on, retaining the officers. And we don't make the highest amount in the county. And if they're working long, unusual hours and not getting days off, what do they have to keep them here? Then going to another department to make more money and have regular hours. So I think getting another officer would behoove us. I think we have a lot of times, as Bruce put in his initial message, where we have one officer on, and our backup Seaside, if we're lucky, usually it's they're busier than we are. And so it could be county that's coming from Warrenton to back up one of my officers in an officer safety situation. And so this would give us an extra officer during some of those busy overlap times, and also during the day shift when it's very busy on weekends and we only have one officer on who's stuck directing traffic, dealing with the call and other calls that are coming in. So that's my big push this year. You'll see that in the increases throughout the personnel cost, because it does affect different areas, the HDL insurance, disability insurance, as well as PERS. Part of that is that we put that position in as the highest paid officer because we don't know what we'll get. You know, we'd love to get a transfer from another agency so that it's already trained, but that's hard sometimes, especially with housing. So we put it in there at the top cap in case that's what we get, just so that we're covered. And plus that includes the merit increases and 5% increase that were approved last week for their wages. Down below with supplies, the office supplies, we have some horrible chairs in the office area. So that's a couple chair replacements. I'd like to start doing that every year, just get chair replacements coming for the officers. They do spend a lot of time writing reports and working on paperwork. Computer expenses went up. That's including replacing 2 workstations that we currently have, but also adding another workstation for that new officer. Vehicle fuel increased. I think we all know why. I was at the pumps yesterday and it just keeps going up. Software maintenance. This one went up $11,000, and that's replacing our body cams. We currently have the WatchGuard body cams, and we've had them for at least 6 or 7 years. And the software on them goes bad, where they don't. I mean, that's their selling point, is they sell you something and then the software goes bad after a certain amount of time so that they can sell you new ones. And that's just where we're at. We have to replace them. And as I think I've spoke since we got them in the first place, they're a huge asset to our department. And not only for us, but the citizens that we have contact with it's for their protection as well. Dispatch, that's a common increase. I think it's a 3% increase from last year. That's pretty common each year. We actually are very lucky in what we pay for our dispatch services, but that's for another day. Other materials and supplies. So this would be Rusty's turn to play a video for you, but this is part of officer wellness. It's something that I've been pushing for the last several years, and it's something that's important to me, and it's each of our officers going home at night. The number one issue with law enforcement officers is that our lifespan is a lot shorter than the average citizen, and that's for many different reasons. But the number one killer now for police officers is suicide, and number two is health and heart disease. And so we recently had a doctor that spoke at our chiefs conference that did a wonderful job talking about cardiac health, and that officers don't worry about that. You know, they don't think about it. And so it's something that we as leaders need to look out for our employees. And this is a really interesting program that they've developed, and it's going on nationwide now. In fact, I spoke with the chief from Canby Police Department at the conference, and they've been using it, and they've already saved 2 lives of their officers that had cardiac issues going on that they weren't aware of. And so I'll play this. It's a 1.5-minute video, but it kind of explains what they're talking about. So it's something I'm working with other chiefs on the North Coast because it's easy in the metro areas. You know, they have these teams fly out and they'll work with different agencies, and it's not as easy to get them down here for one agency that's interested. And I know that Seaside's interested, Warrenton's interested, and so it's certainly something that we want to push. And we said, you know, we'd love to come out to the coast, but you know, on top of those wellness, we've talked about fitness programs and that type of thing. And it's not something that I can force on them. Even this isn't something I can make them do, but I think that they all look out for those hidden things. You know, you go into law enforcement and the last thing you're worrying about is heart disease. And that's the last thing, you know, that spouses think about. They don't want their officers to, or their husbands or spouses to get hurt on the job, but they don't look at that hidden illness that's going on, how they eat, the odd, unusual hours, grabbing quick food and between different things. So it's important that we give them the options to look out for their health where we can. So that's under materials and supplies. That's the increase for that. Dues and subscriptions went up by 150, and that's just because the Oregon Association Chiefs of Police this year increased their dues just because of we haven't raised them since, I think they said 6 to 10 years. So that's just a typical increase. And then the only, or one of the things that went down was patrol vehicle. We're not going to go with a patrol vehicle this year. Part of that is because of it took Warrenton over a year to get their new car just because it's so backlogged. And we're fine with what we have for now. We did put in for a ranger, a side-by-side for the beach. Because we constantly will wait to use the lifeguards if there's something on the beach, and that's a lot easier to get around. And so I think that would be more advantageous for us during the summertime. It's not big and bulky. We're getting stuck in the sand. So that is it for the police budget. Any questions for that? Yes.
Chief, if you were able to get the new position, when would you be able to hire them?
Immediately. Whether that happens or not, I would like to hire them immediately. And we certainly get the application process started as soon as possible.
Okay.
Thank you. Anything else?
Even if we started the recruitment now, the funding wouldn't be used until July 1st, because we're not going to pick somebody up in 6 weeks.
Yeah.
Or 10 weeks.
Yeah. And then lifeguard. Let's see. This is actually a good thing as well. We're looking at, or actually, we approved it last week with the council, working with the fire department on lifeguard, our lifeguard program. And that's a great thing because they would start before our actual lifeguard season begins. Several of our lifeguards are actually teachers, so they can't start till mid-June. And we've noticed the last few years that some of our big rescues are before the lifeguard season starts. And so the lifeguards would be able to start, I think they're planning on starting Labor Day weekend for us. And they have 5 or 6 that are interested in training to be lifeguards so that they can help supplement our lifeguard program, which I think is going to be very advantageous for us this year as we're having a hard time getting lifeguards. We have a good group, but sad part for us, but exciting part for them is one of our head lifeguards' wife is also a lifeguard, but they just found out the other day they're having twins.
Yeah.
And so she won't be a lifeguard this summer. And
Jason, you were talking about Memorial Week.
did I say Labor Day?
Mhm.
Oh,
Okay. Make sure we're.
Thanks for having my back.
Summer, yeah.
Yes, Memorial Day weekend. So I think that that'll be a great partnership, and I put that into our budget as well to have them there. And then the telephone, their lifeguard, they have different cell phones, and that increased last year because we have added that. And then the fuel, same reason. Vehicle repair and maintenance went up. Funny enough, they were having issues running with the pickup yesterday for training and called me and said, can we get a new battery? I said, go ahead. They got a new battery. It was running fine during the day, and they put it through the wash rack because that's a problem. That's why the vehicle maintenance is so big with their stuff. They get the sand and they have to wash them off each day. Well, we washed it off last night and some smoke started coming from somewhere and they had to leave it there. So we're working on that as well. But unfortunately, the wear and tear that happens to those things, we think it's an electrical issue, but we'll see what we can do with it. That's it for the lifeguard. But
There's a little moldy car out in the park.
back from Jeff.
I was going to
Cut the roof off.
Jeff's got a police-ready car. Got
Yeah,
to put the decals back on.
that's right. Any questions on lifeguards?
The lifeguards that the fire district is supplying, who's paying the wages for that? Is that fire district wage?
We reimburse them at our wage that we pay the lifeguards.
Okay,
And
so
then
we're basically paying for that.
Yeah.
Okay.
How many lifeguards this year?
I think they're at 8. We normally run 11 to 15. And the other thing too, Seaside has 15 lifeguards this year and 4 of them are Coast Guard. They got to them before we could. But they said, no, because they are saying we may have to get rid of some. We have so many. And so they said they'd give us help as well, which is good. I mean, we need to work together. Thank you. Have a good day.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chief.
Thank you, Chief.
Thanks, Jason.
Next is General Fund Haystack Rock Awareness Program.
We're page 3.
Yes.
Okay.
Those of you that don't know, this is Kelly Hannes.
Those of you who don't know, you should know, right? Okay. All right, so I'm gonna just jump right in, and I will start by saying 94% of our budget is personnel, which makes sense because 98% of what we do is personnel related. So I think that's pretty accurate representation to our budget. But that's also what you're gonna see is where the most of my asks are coming from. This fiscal year is mostly changes to the personnel budget side. So I can actually echo a lot of what Jason said, that they're experiencing as police officers. We also experience down at the beach between numbers of people coming up, the burden that is feeling, that the staff is feeling out there as far as the amount of people that they're having to talk to and handle is increasing stress load a little bit on top of, in my case, I have commuter employees who are coming from at the farthest, about a 45, 50-minute drive in good traffic conditions. In the summertime, it's a little bit more. And it's a pretty big ask for someone who lives pretty far with current fuel prices. So we're trying to stay competitive with our wages, knowing that our staff that we have are all holding bachelors. Several of them also hold masters, and they really want to stay in the field of environmental conservation and education, and somewhere that's adjacent to that, so that they feel good about what they're doing and what their job is. You know, don't want to just go out and get a service industry job. I know all my staff like to feel good about what it is that they do and feel a purpose and mission, and we help fulfill that for them. So anyways, I will say a trend that was extremely interesting this year is that about 22% of our shifts, so we calculate all of our shifts in advance. So we know at the start of the year in January, we know what our entire summer theoretically is going to look like. We have every shift scheduled out because we have the tide books given to us that are calculated from NOAA. These are just estimates. There are a ton of factors that go into what a tide actually is going to be at, though it tends to be fairly accurate. But we've noticed for the last 2 years, we've had shifts that were actually coming in 22% longer than our calculations were giving us based on the tide. And this is primarily due to storm pattern changes, and the amount of sand is the biggest factor. How much sand gets deposited during winter storms and during or pulled out during winter storms and deposited into the springtime is not a predictable variable. And so this is where most of our shift kind of variable times. And we're noticing that we are erring too conservatively on the shifts that we are putting out, as in we're not scheduling them for as long as we need to be. We saw 22% longer estimated needs. So I have an increase in hourly asked for by part-time salary workers to either add an additional staff person or to just increase the hours of those that are out there to adjust for that. I also included in that calculation is a higher baseline pay rate to stay competitive for the field. Then for our year-round staff, we are looking to hopefully go from, right now we have two. I have two part-time, one that's at 3/4 and one that's at just under half-time. And I would like my 3/4 staff, my education coordinator, Lisa Havaker, to be full-time going forward from this next year. That's also same demands, higher frequency of school groups that we can't fit in, and higher amounts of volunteers that need more coordinating effort. Okay, so that's the personnel side. And then going down into our supplies and materials budget. Okay, so we have down office supplies. I have a slight increase. This is in part because we're doing more in-house creations of signs and items again. I had recently hired this year, or maybe it was last year. Time is a construct. I don't really know when, but Andrew Tonry joined us as my new communications coordinator, and he does a lot of in-house printing. And so we're seeing a jump up in our costs for just printing and buying supplies so that he can do that in-house rather than outsourcing it. I have a little increase in postage, And this is related to two things. One, I have some repairs that we anticipate to do. That's where bulk of our postage actually comes from, is when we have to mail in supplies to get repaired. And also we're doing more virtual field trips, which some of those we have supplies that we mail out to the schools beforehand. Then jumping down, computer, I put up for a little bit just to update a couple of our outdated hardware. No full laptops or computers replacing anticipated for this next year. Telephone went up. We have a higher use of data now that we use whenever we're on virtual field trips. We take iPads out and use data when we do that. Fuel, I increased, which maybe not enough. We'll see how far that keeps running away. And then I'm going to jump down again to equipment repair and maintenance. I have a lot of optics equipment that we're looking at getting repaired. It is cheaper to repair these than to replace them, but it isn't necessarily a small cost. But I have tripods and binoculars that just need a few parts replacements, and that's where that's coming from. Let's see. Dues and subscription went up by 300, and that's because we now have a new website that we are hosting externally, and we have a domain name as a part of that as well. And then the big jump coming in right below that is training, education, and travel and lodging. So this was one that these lines went down quite a bit. This is kind of a return to historical numbers. These went down in 2020 with the pandemic when everything went to virtual hosting, but now our conferences are back in person. We have one group that we always participate in the conference in, that's named the North America Aquatic Marine Educators. And they're doing in-person events again. We are also going to be returning to having our staff, our seasonal staff, come down to Newport to get training together along with other coastwide partners that are down in a once a year kind of training week, essentially. And then the other item that I have that I would want to point out is this is kind of more of a separation where I'd mentioned these is just like, I think in previous budgets, they were listed under grants or miscellaneous or something, but U.S. Fisheries and Wildlife Service volunteer. This is a new item. And what this is currently we get volunteers from U.S. Fisheries and Wildlife Services. They split their time with state parks because they are housed at state parks in Ecola. They have an RV site, and part of the agreement is if state parks is giving them an RV site, then they will give half of their volunteer time to state parks, and then the other half goes to us at Haystack Rock as a U.S. Fisheries and Wildlife Service volunteer. And the hope would be if we can get an RV site here in the city, then the volunteers are 100% volunteering at Haystack Rock for all of their U.S. Fisheries and Wildlife Service volunteer hours. And so this is one that we haven't worked out all the details, but I don't plan to spend any money out of this line unless we have a cost share and or grants to help fund and support this item here. So if we don't get a cost share agreement with U.S. Fisheries and Wildlife Service on this or grants to help supplement that cost, we will continue doing what we currently do, which is letting the volunteers stay at Ecola State Park, and they give half of their volunteer time to us. Ideally, though, I would like 100% of their time. So that's what that is. The one below that is our contribution for OSU Sea Grant Scholars. We do always receive support, grant support funding for this. And this is a cost for fuel and housing, essentially, for a 10-week program where we host and mentor a undergraduate student from, typically they're from Oregon State University, but they can be anywhere or from the country to work specifically on a project with us. Any questions?
I'm glad to see Lisa going to full-time.
Me too. Yeah, we could use that. I'm sure those hours will get sucked up right away.
Yeah.
What is the hourly wage for those who work on the beach?
It depends if they are a junior, which is under the age of 18, or a regular. For our regular, it is anywhere from 16 to 20 to 22 an hour.
How long is their shifts normally?
The shortest shifts are 2 hours, the longest shifts are 9.
Long shift.
Yeah, that one, it's a lot of people. At the most, always at the least is easy. The least people they talk to is about 10. The most people in one day that they've talked to, we hit a record of one interpreter ended up with a count of 842 people in the span of about 7 hours.
Boy.
800?
A lot of talking, yeah.
Ah,
Okay.
Is that multiple groups or is that some individuals?
It's multiple. It varies. We try not to duplicate our counts, but sometimes someone will just keep coming back over and over. Okay.
Thank you.
If there's no other questions, I just have to say, make sure to check out the puffins before they're gone. They are here and they're around, and we're happy to help you see them.
Thank you. Thank you. And we have someone to correct Mark and Ed.
That is item 13.
Okay, so they're gonna, okay. So number 10 is the farmer's market. General fund farmer's market, page 31.
Still making a percent.
Haven't heard from her.
Okay.
31.
Okay. All right, I'll take this one. Any questions?
Yeah, why are you taking this?
Yeah, it was just this budget was, it was pleasant having a budget meeting with Philomena. The amount, the increase was minimal, like 2% or something. And that there's really not a lot of expenses in here. The main expense in salaries is hers. And so very good budget for the operation that they provide.
And no change in the program. They're doing it, okay.
Do you know whether they're planning to have more vendors this year than in the past? Because we've had somewhat fewer vendors because of COVID.
My understanding is that she thought she would be back up towards normal. But there's also the question on anybody dealing with food.
Yeah.
So I think that's a little bit more up in the air.
Did she say whether she expected to have any prepared food vendors this year? I know that's been a real problem.
The last time her and I chatted, she didn't anticipate.
No prepared food vendors?
Prepared food, because she's been talking with finance and with me when she gets vendors because of the food tax. But the last time, have you heard anything else? The last we chatted, she wasn't anticipating any.
You see Philomena, tell her I did a good job.
Did a great job.
She kept it all.
I think the general fund building maintenance, page 28.
We have some funding for facility maintenance and maintenance supplies. We don't do more than what we need to do in this building. Try not to spend money on if we don't have to. Going down into facility improvements, we talked a little bit in the budget message that primarily the city hall, we are going to need to pre-fund some of the design professionals, because we won't be collecting money until probably sometimes in 23. So we will, in order to find out how much money we would need and what the design might be, we're going to need to have the the architects on, and also the construction manager, general contractor of the CMGC, because they're really the ones who provide with the cost numbers. They have those kind of contacts, and they're also more into exactly how it's going to be constructed and what the potential costs. So that is the lion's share of the funding of $942,000. The CMGC and the designer is about 600. That is not the total contract for either one of them. That's what it'll cost to get us to probably the end of schematic design. Then these numbers here, we will be able to recover. Council did adopt a reimbursement resolution. And so once we get the bond funds, we will be able to pay the general fund back for these. Any questions?
Question, just kind of a format thing. Will this, when we do start construction, will that be a separate budget section, or is this just going to morph?
Separate fund.
Okay. Curious.
So we get the financing in place.
Okay.
The proceeds will go into that fund. It's similar to what I set up for the Cannon Beach Elementary School. You'll see a brand new fund in here.
But will this section then just stay put until we start doing maintenance on the new building?
We'll still have to do maintenance on this building or wherever else we are. So there will be a budget for the.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's a different building.
A little bit of overlap here with this 900,000, and I was just curious how that's going to work. Okay.
Yeah, and the 900 is really for the next building. The 42 is for this building.
Yeah, I understand that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Report from the Cannon Beach Library.
Yeah, that's on the agenda. Phyllis sent in her report as she does every year and kind of speaking to the community program department. We slotted $18,000 for the library. That's on page 29 of your budget. Talk about community programs at all, Bruce?
Yeah.
Page 29. I know we have sea turtles coming.
They were notified. Yeah.
Okay.
Mark? Next, you ready to present sea turtles? If you put you up first. Good to see you.
Wanted to zoom in.
It's not on there. It's not, No. So I don't know what he's trying to connect to. not on the phone or the link.
Sure. I mean, I was told I had 5 minutes.
Yeah, no, that's.
So
You can have longer than that.
I set it up for 5 minutes and not sure, that was a challenging thing, 5 minutes, but I've set it up for 5 minutes and then questions. Because I know really why I'm here is to answer questions, bring people up to date on where we're at, because there were some questions at the council meeting, Sam's been on the beach with us quite a bit, and Mayor Stidel, excuse me, and with us, but I'm not sure who else has and really understands what we're doing. So
Just give a short version.
I had a
I see that's your presentation.
short, just a few slides.
Okay.
Slide 2. Is this the clicker?
Yeah, hold on a second here. Yes, you can use that.
Well, Ed really wanted to be here. My background, I'm not sure everybody understands my background, but I've been an investigator for marine turtle research on major project in Costa Rica, Central America, authorized by the Costa Rican government. I've been doing that for 20 years. Microplastics became another area where I worked on research with Tokyo University and then developed the system we're using here. I've authored a couple of scientific research papers on both subjects. I was asked last year to be on the United Nations Judges Panel to assess engineering projects that could stop the plastics from entering the ocean, because really that's, where we need to be when to stop all plastic from entering this ocean. So I was chosen. I'm pretty well known internationally. I'm not sure, here in Oregon, people know me because of this system that we're running, this filtration system. But there was questions about how long we've been operating, and some people thought it'd been several years, but actually this article here is from 2011, and we'd been at it for a couple of years at that point. So really, we've been on these beaches for about 13 years now. When I realized that problem, after doing the research with Tokyo University, I realized what a problem this microplastic is, and came back, and sure enough, we started having microplastics. So this was the first, what I did originally was survey the Oregon coast, because this is a problem on the whole Oregon coast. So, and I paid for all this out of pocket, my survey, and the survey work, it's quite a body of work. It was used by the Center for Biological Diversity. And I'm going to leave these papers here if anybody's interested in the initial research that shows that we were having exponential landfall. So we started out, we were at around 50 grams per square meter, and it was exponentially per year doubling the amount of landfall we were experiencing. And that's in this paper. It was used by the Center for Biological Diversity because I've been trying to get the state involved with this so that we can get some help to operate, not just in Cannon Beach, which is where I'm focused. Now, our team is focused here in Cannon Beach, but the whole state needs this. I get calls from every single town up and down the coast, every single town asking for help. And that's a state level thing. If I had the funding, I could set up a program, but I don't have that funding. We're covering Cannon Beach because we're supported here. The business community supports us. Which button do I hit to go down?
It's the one of the top two buttons, one backwards.
Oh, sorry. Okay. This was 8 years later. The article I did. There we are at Chapman Point, but just to show that, of our history, or anybody wants to read that article, that's great. So all these communities want help, but we are focused here in Cannon Beach because this is where we have support. We have been raising money ourselves. And that was another question was about our reports. So we do extensive reports, and I have several of them here if anybody wants to see what our reports are like. I mean, it's a day by day journal of how many personnel we've had on the beach, how many volunteers we had on the beach, how many pounds we removed, how many hours we worked. It's everything it goes into our reports so that I can turn it in to Parks and Rec, because Parks and Rec has been helping us a little bit. Maybe 12% of our budget a year for the last few years has come from Parks and Rec. And it's been a little bit of a help, but we've been responsible to raise the money for this. Over the life of this project here in Cannon Beach, we've spent approximately 150,000 cash that we've raised. And then we've had in-kind volunteers, at least 150,000 in volunteer hours, worth of volunteer hours. I mean, we've put a good 300,000 into this ourselves with a small bit of help from Parks and Rec, a fraction of what we've done. I want to protect these beaches. I've lived here all my life. I do this as a passion, not just a job, because I love these beaches, and they're some of Oregon's finest beaches. 95% of our budget goes to personnel. And then, of course, we have accounting. And as far as our accounting records, we were with Forrest Cook, and unfortunately, he passed away from COVID last year. And now we're with Rosemary Howell. And so all of our records are, are transparent. Anybody can see where we're spending our money. But this chart, it kind of illustrates where we were going, before COVID. COVID really hurt us. So, we were building our volunteer base. The year before COVID, we were up to 316 volunteers. We had 6 staff. And when we removed about 3,500 pounds, that's all in one of these reports here, the exact number is 35 something, or it says it there. What was it, 3046? And then COVID hit. Of course, we were not able to go to the beach. And, you've got this exponential landfall. That's kind of leveled off now, but it's still at about 300 grams per square meter per year. It's a lot. If people that walk the beach, I'm sure see it. So then we skipped a year, and this shows what happens when we skip a year. We only had, because of COVID, we had 37 volunteers last year instead of 316 the year before COVID. We also had, our budget is really non-reliable source. We get donations, local businesses, and I do manage to get us a few grants. Besides Parks and Rec, I remember to get us at least a couple a year. But it's really not a totally reliable source of funding as this would be to help us move forward. You can see the difference. We had 3 people in 37, but we almost doubled the amount of debris we removed. And that's a reflection of how bad it was last year. There was an immense bed of microplastics. It was probably 4 to 6 inches under the surface. And that's what happens when you skip a year, then it gets more embedded and it builds up, it starts to concentrate and the density increases. So it was kind of shocking, when I looked at the figures of what happens when we stop for a year. I wish Ed could have made it. I know Ed wanted to talk too. I'm not sure what he wanted to say, but thank you. So I have been working to get the state involved. This is Suzanne Weber. She was our state representative last year. Now she's running for Senate, but I got her to come to the beach, look at the issue. She told me, Mark, this is a really important issue. You need help. I'm going to get you help. That was when she said, you need more funds. I'm going to help get you those funds. Well, it's politics, right? We didn't get any more funds, and now she's not our representative anymore. So we have to start from scratch. And you know what, when I'm contacting these people like Senator Merkley and Suzanne Weber, I'm just this researcher guy that is not, really well-known in Oregon political circles at all. But what we're hoping is to boost that part of our program, to try and get the state involved. Center for Biological Diversity, they turned this report into the DEQ because there are laws in our Constitution that the state is responsible to keep our waterways clean, nearshore waters included. So the state is really responsible to help us. The DEQ has a couple of years to respond to this report. Okay, so we're kind of in limbo. And the Center for Biological Diversity is really a group of about 50 environmental lawyers. And what they do is try and push the state in the right direction. We should be getting help from the state. This is a really low cost system, comparably to what we accomplish, keeping these beaches pristine. The state should be paying for this, or at least part of it. And so we're trying to work towards that by picking away at the politics. And that's a whole new education for me. What would really help is, I know there's a convention of mayors, these coastal mayors, and people like yourselves, counselors and city managers, start pushing the buttons on the politics of this, and we should get help. The state really should be responsible. They should be helping out with this. It isn't there yet, but we're working towards that. So we can protect these beaches, because it's not really look like we're going to get any relief as far as it's just going to stop. We're about 13 years in now, and if anything, it's kind of leveled off at about 300 grams per square meter right now, which is a lot. And particularly here in Cannon Beach, the survey work goes all the way to Port Orford, and Cannon Beach had the highest density at Crescent Beach. We get hit hard with this material. 95% of our budget goes to personnel. And we try and mostly hire college students if we can because of the time frame. We want full-time college students. We offer them a job for the summer. We want to pay them for the summer. The number of staff we hire on the beach depends on our budget, which is, as I say, non-reliable. And we've done a pretty good job of trying to raise enough money, just keep going. And volunteers, when we had 316 volunteers, that was beautiful. But that is unreliable too.
Just, you know, I did try to call Ed, and my phone number for him doesn't work anymore, I guess.
503-440-2189. And he's probably a little bit IT challenged on getting on.
Yeah.
We've been doing our board meetings on Zoom, so he should be able to get on.
I sent him the link too.
Yeah, but anyway, but I did try to reach him, and so the council knows I did try to get a hold of Ed, you know, and this.
He's not answering?
It wouldn't let me go through. It said that the, I forgot the exact message, but
The mailbox full or something?
no, it wasn't mailbox. full. It was,
I didn't bring my phone.
yeah, but anyway, it was, the call couldn't be completed or whatever. I used the number that I'd always use anytime I called him.
Which number?
Five oh three, 436-0201.
Nope, that one's not any good. 503-440-2189, he'll pick up.
Yeah,
Okay.
436,
Well-
he's not living here.
Okay, do we need to have,
I can call him.
okay, do we want to, or we could just have questions from?
Do you?
I mean, Ed is kind of an icon. I don't know what it's up to the council and it's up to you people.
I do have a question while we're waiting. When you get calls from,
Hi, Ed. We're wanting to put you on.
Unprepared, Sam.
Yeah.
Okay, tell me when to go.
Can people hear?
Yeah.
Okay. Go ahead.
First of all, I want to thank your receptionist, Tuffa, for getting me through, because I spent an hour and 15 minutes trying to establish contact through the regular channels. And I apologize because I'm not there, you know, with my smiling face. Believe me, it's smiling based on Robert's giving me this opportunity to speak. There's no question about how important this little item is as you consider whether or not to fund the Sea Turtles Forever, Blue Wave, microplastic management project for Cannon beaches. We've been doing this now. We missed last year, but this is since 12 we've been doing this, and we spent from our own capital over between $100,000 and $200,000. Mark might be able to give a more exact number on that, because we did discuss this already in the city so far, based on limited funds. The Public Parks and Community Service Committee, which has been very generous based on how much money they have, has not been able to meet our needs. All as I can ask in a short period of time is you give us due consideration. Remember, what you do, providing a line item in your budget, is establish a precedence for the entire state of Oregon, if not the whole country, for how to manage this huge problem. It's only going to eat us up, regardless of what action we take. It's bigger than us, but we need you as to be the initial mover for a major effort towards controlling the microplastic issues on our beaches. Thank you very much, and I'm very excited about the outcome of this hearing and what you decide. Bye.
Thanks, Ed.
Thanks, Ed.
Thank you.
the question I have is, when you get calls from other cities along the coast, do you go down and do the process like you do here?
No, I do ship a lot of screens.
You what?
I ship screens to different groups, and I've gotten some funding from Lush Cosmetics to send out free screens. So when I get a call and I got a group like in Newport, Lincoln City, Coos Bay, Bandon, and they need help, I can't go to those places because I put all my volunteer time in here. I do all this administration. It's volunteer. And I'm volunteered out to the max here. So I try and set them up. I'm working with a guy right now, Steven Siegel in Newport. They're buried under this. They're buried. And I'm trying to get him directed. I'm trying to help get them set up with a group to teach them. I try and teach these people how to start groups. I've done it for many, many, many places. If you go on our map on our website, there's actually a map of all the places that I've helped get started. They're all over the world.
So then the other question I have is, do you get funding at all from the ones that you're helping?
No, and you know what? I do actually, Berkeley, California, they paid me to fly down and set them up. Long Beach, California, they paid me to fly down there and set them up.
How about Oregon?
No,
I mean, any like if the city of Newport or the city of Yachats or,
if they could fund me to do it, and I mean, I'm reasonable. I charge 300 a day for California. Peanuts. I make twice that much at work.
but Newport and, I mean, some of the cities in Oregon that you've helped set up, they haven't done any.
I don't, Oregon is, I just try and do what I can. I would go, but those people have nothing to work with. I mean, they have nothing to work with. And it's hard. I was also flown to Lake Erie and the same thing. I charge 300 a day per diem. It's like half what I make. Just because I have to, I can't volunteer myself to death. And it affects my family.
So from what I'm hearing from you, is the only municipality that pays anything right now is Cannon Beach. Is that right?
Cannon Beach is where our support is. That's why, all the businesses, Dragonfire, the hotels, people that really, they want this beach clean, and the environmental and the art community here. Everybody's pretty environmental here. Cannon Beach is a model of environmentalism. And so we're getting funds from here. We work here. We have had funds before come from Manzanita. Then we'll go down there. We'll use those funds that came from Manzanita. But they haven't been able to raise. I'm trying to work on something down there. I've been getting calls from there. Please, can you come down here? I can't do it all volunteer anymore. So, we had Kate Eskew down there, the doctor's daughter, and she was spearheading Manzanita for us. And she managed to raise enough money so we were able to run some short projects down there.
How often do you clean up the beaches here in Cannon Beach?
5 days a week.
5 days a week.
All summer long. That's how we report to day by day. And, sometimes we can't work in the rain.
Yeah.
So there are days, but we schedule to go 5 days a week all summer. And get it done and get it back to pristine here. That's our focus. That's, with the budget we have, which is not enough for even that fully.
And is it all along Cannon Beach, or is it just in one area like Chapman Point?
We do all from Crescent Beach. There's years we go all the way to Havana. But Whale Park is a disaster. It is unbelievable amount of plastic that comes in there. If you go down there, you'll see it. And then quite a bit of it is just under the surface, 4 to 6 inches under the surface. Last year, because we skipped a year, it was pretty deeply embedded. It was a real chore. But if we keep at it every year, it's not quite as hard. But we do Crescent Beach for sure to Haystack Rock, Chapman Point, Les Shirley Park, Whale Park, Haystack Rock. Haystack Rock on the north side is pretty bad right now. It's always pretty bad there. For some reason, and this is what we do and with my survey work, isolating where the heavy concentrations are, because it isn't like a uniformly spread down the coast. It concentrates in these areas where the current's just right. Like Whale Park is, the water comes up that river. The tidal bores push up that river in the winter and just push it in there. Crescent Beach is one of the worst sites in Oregon on yours. But now, because our project, the beaches here are probably the cleanest beaches in Oregon right now, because this operation isn't being ran seriously in any of the other cities. And I get more and more calls every year. Just, could you please set some up here? I'm like, well, we need funding. And I tell people, first of all, you need a sponsor. Well, you need to find sponsors. There's, a series of steps you have to go through. You have to develop something with a little bit of a foundation. Like we've been at it here 13 years. I mean, the first 2 years were mostly research and development that I paid for. Just figuring this out. How are we going to do this? What kind of tools do we need? And I was way ahead of the curve on that as far as internationally, and was, I patented that system. But
Permission from state parks?
I've worked with state parks. At the beginning, I had to fill out a massive document for them. I do work with state parks and they help us. At first, I had to get permitted through Salem and about 6 or 7 different agencies, and state parks finally, the director of state parks at that time, and this was probably 10 years, at least 10 years ago, more. It was at least 11 years ago. Who?
Kim Wood.
No.
Well, Lisa's.
He was the head of
Assumption.
Coastal State Parks. He was out of Warrenton. And I was
Okay.
I was working with him, and he went to Salem and got them to just say, give Mark the green light. This system is amazing and he's not doing any harm. So I have worked with them, and at Crescent Beach, they've actually come down and helped us remove we'll collect hundreds and hundreds of pounds at Crescent Beach. It's really hard to get it back up the hill. So the city was coming around with a truck on the extreme low tides and picking it up for us. It was like a truckload, and driving it back around on the lowest tide of the summer. We coordinate with the city of Cannon Beach. And then last year, state parks came, it was the year before COVID was the last time they came down the hill with their park rangers and took it out for us, which is quite a chore. But other state parks, I've sold the screen to state parks in Central and Southern Oregon so that they would have some on site. But you need a crew. Like for me, my staff, they're vital for this. You can't do volunteers. Volunteers are great. Yeah, we had 316 one year. It's great having those volunteers, but you have to have a staff that's down there 5 days a week, just getting the job done, and is there every day. That's vital.
Yeah, I hear you, like 10 years ago, you got permit. Do you get an annual permit?
No, we don't need a permit anymore. That's what the head of Oregon Parks, he went to the meeting in Salem and said, look, the paperwork, it was taking me days every year. I had to have GPS location, time and date of every site we were going to work on. I had to have aerial photographs of every site. And then I had to have reams of information. And then it had to be signed off by about, like the archaeological agency and all these different agencies that had to sign off on it so I could operate and get that permit. They decided to let Mark go, give him the green light, go wherever you want, Mark, whenever you want, get this done. And so now we don't need that permit.
But they're not giving you any funds to do this.
Not state parks. That's where we need to get into the politicians, because if the Oregon coast, if all the towns, all the mayors are all of the city managers on the Oregon coast, this is a huge issue everywhere. And we're keeping these beaches clean, but the other ones are getting buried under this. It's a coastal issue. There should be funds for each city that's being affected by this. And that's what I'm working towards. I'm going to keep working towards that myself. But as I said, city managers and mayors have a lot more pull than I do. And council people. When you call your politicians, call your state representative. Suzanne Weber came down and she saw it. She would work with me on the filter. She saw, this is terrible, Mark. And I'm like, yeah. She goes, I didn't understand. And I'm like, yeah, well, now you've been spent a day with me. Now you understand. And she goes, you need help. And I'm like, yeah, I told her what my budget was. And she's like, that's peanuts. And I'm like,
You gotta, with this budget that you're asking for here, we have departments or even the library, we can see how they're going to spend the money. We get a report, something to look at, and then something for accountability. So at the end of the year, we get, library, we get quarterly reports where the money's went. And I know you've got money for grants from the tourism and anyway, the city's offered grants, but I haven't seen anything come back. I hear the numbers, I hear a number of volunteers, but I haven't seen a report. It's like, I'm very supportive of the idea and what you're trying to do. I'm just not comfortable with the city. You get a check for $10,000 and then what? Everybody else, we know the people are working. We see them in their offices. We see them in their trucks. We see them at the library. We see the staff. And then we get a report back. These are the results. So I'm looking for the accountability, not whether the program's any good or not. I have no doubts about that. But how do we get assurance that we're getting, the city is getting something back from the money that's been granted? And you say it's mostly salaries. $10,000 isn't very far for all these number of volunteers you're talking about. So how's it get allocated? I know you've spent a lot of time with Bruce. Maybe he has these answers, but I've not seen anything other than you want a line item. I can understand how those come back, but
I totally understand. And it's right on spot because that needs to be done. And, like these day-to-day reports and financial. That's one of our reports. This year was 13,751 for our wages. And it actually documents every day we were on the beach. And a large portion of that time is Well Park, Les Shirley Park, where the worst concentrations are, and then Chapman Point. But
maybe we should get copies, maybe each member should get copies of that report, then maybe that would.
Yeah, if that's what we're gonna get, I'm not aware that I can't think of the name of the committee, but giving you grants a couple of years back.
Parks and Rec.
Yeah, well, it wasn't Parks and Rec, but I'm talking about city funding.
TAC.
Yeah, the TAC, but maybe.
Tourism and Arts.
I don't know what they got back. I don't know what accountability came, because you didn't come back to them again. You wanted a line item. So I'm just uncomfortable saying, where are we going to get? What kind of assurance do we get the money's being spent as you say it will be?
Oh, we can report pretty much under any specifications you like, I mean, we've got professional accountants that are, and bookkeepers, and that's all, we can give you reports from our accountants on wages spent, and equipment costs, everything, and then a day-to-day outline of everywhere we've worked, what we did that day, how many volunteers we had. I mean, we really try and report everything. And we do this when we're getting a small grant, like, the $2,000 grant, we still report it every day, what happened, and with our finances, everything.
I'm not looking at this being like a department of the city with all these details broken out, how it's all spent, but I just want to know what we get back. How do we know you're out there working? We don't know when you work. We don't know how many people you've hired. We don't know how much you collected. There's a lot we don't know. Again, it's only $10,000. Get that. And you'd like to have the assurance that you've got at least that much money as you make your plans. I get all that. But we have a responsibility to make sure that the money's being well used, whether it's for a truck or for some plumbing fixtures in the bathrooms. It's something we can see. We come back, see it's there. This sort of goes off to somebody else, not a city person, I don't know, do we have a contract with you? You're looking for.
No, I think to really see the work that we're doing, you have to be on the beach. If you're on the beach, right now, go down to Well Park, you'll see what it's like. There's microplastic covering that beach. And I know Mayor Steidel's been down there and seeing what we're pulling out.
I've watched this sifting also. down there. A group around doing that. It would be nice to have some sort of a budget for the 10,000. Just what you're planning on spending it on.
Wages.
Yeah. Well,
It would really go to wages for our staff on the beach. They're the ones that are paying. That's really where it'll all go.
Yeah, clearly, but I know what Mike is saying, to have something that we can put our hands on to say, this is the number of people, this is how the 10,000 is come up with, and then for every quarter or something that says this is where we're at compared to what we thought we were going to spend. Just some sort of accountability, I think would be helpful.
That wouldn't be a problem at all. I mean, our season is June to September, end of September. So it's really a quarter, or, it's 4 months, almost 1 quarter, a little over 1 quarter. And, I mean, we can report anywhere you want to, because it isn't that hard for us. We've got bookkeepers, accountants. And I keep track every day of what happens on the beach because I need to know exactly what's happening on the beach. And I'm not on the beach every day. I'm doing the administration, but we meticulously keep track of what happens on the beach every day. Who's there, how many volunteers, how many pounds were removed, where we worked. I mean, it's pretty meticulous record keeping. And then, we've got professional accountants that keep track of everything. So as far as an accounting, that's not a problem.
Mark, you do most of your work during the summer, correct?
All the work. June to September. And, we'll run until it rains. When it rains, we can't work when the
So
rain.
if we got a full report at sometime in the fall that had financials, timing, and all the issues that we could come up with that we're concerned about, I think people would be comfortable with that. Just so that we have, actually, as a city, so that we have something that we can promote, just the way Kelly just promoted our HVAC, because it is a big deal that we are doing this funding. So in that sense, what we require is kind of proof. You have it. All we need to do is make sure that we get it.
And in any format that you want, I can deliver it. I mean, this format was what I like. It's data. It's how many hours, how many people, how many volunteers, how many pounds, where we were at. I want to know that every day.
And that's probably exactly what we're looking for. We haven't seen it yet. And
then match it with this. It's our bookkeeping and accounting records. That's, to me, that's what you're asking for. And it only makes common sense that we give you that. I try to do that every year. Really fully report, because I'm proud of the work we're doing too. And I want it reported fully and in depth. And any way that you would like it, I would set it up so we report that way, the way you want it.
Let me just make clear, my concern is not the quality or what you're doing. My concern is a line item in our budget. Every other line item there's somebody accountable through a contract or they're an employee. And you're neither. We do give grant monies out without all those requirements because it's a community grant. The city says, yeah, that's a worthwhile cause. Here's the funding. We'd like to have it. We need a report back, especially if you come back for another round of grants. But there's not the same accountability required in handing out that kind of a grant for a community good. This is a line item in our budget. And it's the only one that I found that it looks like a grant. It's not going under a contract. It's not going to a department. So that's my problem with it. If you're asking for a grant, I'd encourage the fact to authorize a grant. Ask for a line item. I feel there's a little bit same heartburn with the library, except we know exactly where they are and what they've been doing, how they're staffed, all those things. And Nancy works for their volunteers there.
A contract. Well, what would that be like, Bruce? A contract, if we contracted with the city, if that would made you more comfortable, but maybe we should do that if that's,
Well, I think some way you could look at it like this, Mark, is that you are doing exactly what we pay a much larger amount of money to a company to do in our city by picking up trash. You're asking for $10,000 to do an enormous amount of work. And we have no problem paying a janitorial company to come through our town twice, sometimes 3 times a day. And their accountability is what we see. I have no problem with what Mr. Ward is asking for, and I believe it's something the city should support.
and for me, we've been doing this for years on our own, almost on our own, raising all the funds, getting this work done. By year, getting this work done. I think that's accountability, that we've been here so long doing this. For over a decade, we've been keeping these beaches in shape.
I'm very happy with that, very pleased with it. We're just doing it here as a line item on Faith. With our trash pickup people, we have a contract with them. And we know that those trash cans are overflowing, nobody picked it up. So we can get somebody out there. With this, either a contract or a grant, but a line item unsupported in the budget just doesn't work for me. I'm only one out of 8 on the committee, so.
Well, I'd like to be able to make you happy too, Councilor Benefield. I came here to try, what I want to do is make you satisfied that you're getting, a good benefit contribution of the city. And that's my goal. And I think you can see if you're on the beach, if you go down to the beach, like if you look at the trash can and it's full, hey, they didn't do their job. You go down to the beach and you see microplastic covering a well park where thousands of children play every year. Thousands. I mean, we see hundreds down there every day. We're down there, children playing in the sand. You go down there now, you'll see the microplastics. You go down there when we're done and you'll see it's gone or not.
Well, we can also see the truckloads of stuff that you collected. Yeah. And weighed and all that. That part's.
Yeah.
No, I'm not arguing with what you do. I'm arguing with the process, the way we're funding. That's all.
Yeah, I'd like to fine tune it because I would want you to be happy too. I would really, if there's anything we could do to fine tune it that would make you more comfortable done. That's what I would like to do.
Can I make a suggestion? I would suggest, and I don't know how anybody else feels about this, I suggest that you take a look at the report that the Cannon Beach Library, it's a 2-page report. And then it has the line item budget for the library. Just take a look at that.
Okay.
And then the report that you obviously already produce that shows every day that you're on the beach, summarize that and put it into a format similar to the library report.
Where can I get that report?
I'll email it to you.
You can email. Thank you. For me, this is a learning experience because this is an environment, I'm not often in. I've been to a few of these meetings and stuff, but it's a learning experience for me. What do I need to do to make this better? Because I would like to see Newport and Lincoln City and these other towns be able to save their beaches. And this is really the model that's created here in Cannon Beach for this whole thing. We started here, built the system here. We've been growing and learning every year right here in Cannon Beach.
I'd suggest you're probably going to get this out of this budget. Maybe you're not. But I would like to see, if you're going to come back next year, I want to see not just, we need $10,000. I want to see a report like the library does. You have quarterly results. Maybe you just have a summer result, depending on how your time frame is. But the library is a service provided to this city. Not a city department, but it is a service that's typical of cities. and it's provided to the city, and they give us a report, a written report on activities and a quarterly financial report. And then they come back and ask money for this year. Okay, I'm comfortable with that. You come back next year and say, this is what I need. Here's what we did last year. A summary of all your results. How many volunteers you had, how many hours went in, all those things. And then said, and this is what I would like to have for this year. And here's why. Then you'd probably be in better shape.
I want to make you happy because you're right. And you're being responsible, and I understand that. And I would like to, develop this and learn to make something that makes you happy. And the reporting, you're not totally comfortable with the way that I have the reporting set up. But I want to make you happy because I believe you're on the right track as far as how our reporting should be. I want you to be able to go, hey, this is a good report. Okay. I strive for that when I do my reports.
All right, I think Nancy's made a good suggestion, and
Yeah.
let's move on.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mark.
Thanks, Mark.
Does anybody want copies of this reports?
Leave them for the city and then they can distribute them to us. I think that'd be great.
Okay, I have a few. I have a couple copies of one of these, but I wasn't sure how many I should print up, and it was.
They can take care of that.
Distribute it.
But I will try to totally make you satisfied that we're reporting properly.
Thanks for your good work.
Thank you.
We can get back to community programs. This year, we're again recommending $90,000 for community service grants administered by the Parks and Community Services. The summer concerts is the same $5,000 we spent there in the past. We plan on putting more concerts on this year. It's going to be every Thursday instead of every other Thursday. We are also giving the bands a small stipend, which is allowing us to draw from as far as Portland, including plus the ones that are local. Cambridge Library, we talked about, and you have a report. Tollbon Hall maintenance, what we had in previous years, same thing with the landscaping. The shuttle subsidy, they've not increased the cost to our knowledge, and that is runs in the summer. And last year, the problem they ran into is they didn't find a driver. So this will only happen if in fact they have enough drivers to run all their routes. And last I spoke to them, that was not the case.
Is that summer, is that 7 days a week or is it just weekends?
I believe it is 7 days a week, isn't it, Lori?
The shuttle?
Contract for the shuttle.
No, it runs, it's different winter and summer.
It's summer, it's 7 days.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is it 7 days or is it 5 days?
The shuttle, are you talking about the trolley looking thing?
Well,
Now,
That's
the
separate.
shuttle is in general.
Right.
They swap out the trolley.
Yeah,
depending
for the
on which
weekends
vehicle they
usually.
use.
Okay, so I guess the question about the shuttle is it the one, it goes from what, Seaside or Gearhart to Cannon Beach, or is it the one that goes around?
Now,
Town.
it goes around town, and then I think in early and evening, it does one loop up into Seaside or something like that.
And that's 7 days?
and so.
I think I'd like to double check on
I
that.
don't think it does it weekends. I'm not sure, but
Yeah, because I think
We have it
there's
when
some
we
questions
need
about it.
most, but
Did you say that the community service grants are awarded
For
by?
the contractor.
Is there any oversight by the council of that, or do they just make the awards and there's no review of who?
they recommend the awards to council.
Okay, and what was the original reason that the Sea Turtles was placed in as a line item instead of as part of that granting process?
This is a city program.
The Sea Turtles,
No, I'm sorry, no.
the community service grant?
Well, I think that the reason, as I understand it, is that there are a lot of people apply under the community service grants, heck, and others. And I don't know if there was enough differentiation between this program versus everybody else that might want a line item. And so this is the first time we've taken something from that I'm aware of. They took something that was a grant program and then put it into in as a line item.
The library used to be a grant program.
Oh, is it?
too.
Okay.
What prompted that? That's what I'm trying to understand.
Well, versus being polite, they couldn't make the deadline. And we are realizing that this is actually a community service more than it is a granting type thing for really good projects. So
I don't want to take much time to discuss that. I feel like there's lots of ways to skin the cat, and I would like to address Mike's concern as well. And maybe outside of this, I don't want to derail it. And I certainly think we should leave it in the weekend budget. But I do have the same concern about accountability and reporting, and there's probably some standardized reporting for grant process that could be applied to this, or at least a service level agreement. Like with trash, you have a service level agreement. You're going to empty it 2 times or 3 times as part of the contract. I mean, there must be ways to create accountability and the reporting that Councilor McCarthy had suggested. I don't want to let that part go because we spent almost as long as we did on all the rest of the really important stuff on something really small. And so I could tell there's just a lot, and I didn't want to derail it further, but I would like to help solve it if we can. I also did apply for a community grant this year. In case the budget committee said no, they did apply as well.
okay, good.
I think that when Blue's Council President Benefield asked about a contract, I really am having trouble putting together that contract because I don't know if it's bags or if it's weight, but it's not just plastic. And so what are we weighing? How many of those do we need? And how do we really, do we weigh it, or do they just tell us how much and I don't even know where they take it? So it would be, I guess in my mind, but it'll be difficult to get true accountability out of that program.
That's why I think it should be a grant program.
Grant, I do too. I'm back.
Fine too, yes. Yeah.
Well, and the grant program does require actually quite a bit of documentation. And at the end of the year, or at the beginning of the next cycle, they ask, what did you do last year with the money that you spent? So they do require a report of some kind.
Yeah, and that's
It's gotta be.
natural reporting and accountability process if it goes through that process.
Yeah.
But they were late in getting their application in. And that's
wait a minute.
Couldn't you make an exception to that as the council and add it to the 90,000? And I've been around other councils who do that.
Yeah, we try and avoid exceptions too much. But in this case, I think as a line item, we can request the details a little more firmly than we could, to me, than we could with a grant system. The grants kind of has to cover everybody. But this case, it's closer to a contract because they don't perform to the standard that we ask of them. And Mark has said that he will give us the information we want. So what we have to do is just figure out what information do we ask? And Bruce asked a couple of questions. What is it you're throwing away? What is it you're picking up? How do you weigh it? And all those kinds of things. So we might have to have a work session just to figure out what all those details are so that we can figure out a working relationship with these folks. But again, it's very similar to the janitorial service. I think that works. To me, it works. But any one of the 3 options could work. Well, I'm game to try this one, and if it doesn't, we'll kick it out. It's a little trickier.
Yeah, and I don't doubt that they're doing really good work, all those things. I just don't know if we could come to you and say, yes, they completed this volume or whatever, that you would expect in the contract. And so that's.
I think to get into the weeds a little bit, I think man hours is a more important measure.
That's a measure. Okay, all right, very good. All right, are there any, I'm sorry, there's one other item I want to add. That is restoring the $25,000 for a public arts project. And I talked to Alan about that and trying to get something going in the next fiscal year. And one that I know Robin had been working on is the beach bill. And we'll try to go ahead and resurrect that with Mr. Kozlowski. Yeah.
I'd love to see that. Yeah.
Yeah. That would be wonderful.
Anyway, that's why I asked to have it put back in.
Thank you.
I'm gonna tell Nancy about the shuttle.
I'm sorry, yes. Lori just checked the contract. It is 5 days in the summer.
What do we do on the other 2 days? Nothing?
I believe we do anything.
I didn't think they had the capacity. That was kind of why I had heard that they couldn't do it.
Yeah, I think you might be right.
They have a different schedule on them.
Yeah. There's 2 buses. One is the 20 and one is the 21 and we all.
That's why we don't get the cute one.
So, yeah.
Any other questions on the community programs?
Is, general fund municipal court.
Okay, municipal court is overseen by the finance department. And we had some staffing changes recently. And we have a dedicated position now to be the municipal court clerk. If you look at the 22 budget, we had our assistant finance director in that role, but that's no longer the case. So that's why the dollars are much less. Just because those 2 positions have, different salary requirements. So municipal court, you recall I said we're budgeting revenue of $76,000. And so we have expenses here totaling $55,000. So kind of making if my estimate is coming in the way I think it will, it's making a little profit there. The FTE is now 0.45. We've had a lot of activity in the court, a lot of tickets being written. And of course, summertime is really busy with the parking tickets that are issued. And so it's become quite a bit of work in the court. Other than that, so you can see personnel services costs are down. Materials and services are up, a couple $1,000s. The judge, we increased that. We have a new judge, Mason Benoit, and he's spending a little more time than Judge Wiltshire spent, so, which is good. He likes to do some prepping before the court. And so that's that.
Good. General fund emergency management is next, page 40.
Budget committee meeting members and council. First of all, I've had a great opportunity to do a couple presentations for you guys this year. So we had a chance to kind of review a bunch of stuff and kind of tell you where we were and now where we're going. So hopefully this conversation will be super brief. This is a 3.5-year infrastructure development program that started right at the end of 2019. 2020 was not really normal. But we are doing good by gaining some traction and getting the infrastructure completed in this program. We've also been fortunate enough to get $420,000 of grant funding in this program that we're right in the middle of exercising that and building this. Our objective this specific fiscal year is to complete the infrastructure buildup and then start improving our website and our community outreach with text, video, tutorial, and educational concepts. So you're going to see a flip in this, after this next fiscal year, from infrastructure costs, which are high, to infrastructure costs, which are very low, and just a maintenance program that we've been talking about for the past few years. And fortunately, over the past 2 years, we've been able to get grant funding to support that. It actually made the program go faster, but you have to manage it and build it quicker. So it's been a challenge. We've been lucky recently by having Crest as an alternate. Thank you, city manager, for getting that up and running for us, because they've been able to help me already start a grant process, which I would not have had time to do on my own. And that's been very good. And some of the costs in the budget are challenging, because if the Spire grant, which is the same grant that we got from the state to get the vehicle that the fire department has that we share, it's the same type of equipment. And those are state preparedness incident response equipments, or Spire. Some of those things are heavy cost equipments, like $15,000 for a fuel vehicle, or $4,000 for a water delivery trailer. Those are things that we have no idea if we're going to get. And so the key is, if you have to have them in your infrastructure, then the key is to try to get them in your budget. And then hopefully by having them in your budget and supported by the committee, then you have better chances of getting some of these grants. And we've proven that to be effective. So that's one thing that we're real excited about. So when you see the difference between last year and this year coming up, there's been a change in some of those costs. And some of these things are actually in the grant that are basically double dipped, to where if we're able to get some of the grant funding 100% exercised and developing some of these cash sites, then a lot of money will go back in the general fund that's not going to be exercised in some of these costs. But it's hard to say right now. It's too early to say. In the very bottom, you also see the coastal outside alarm system, the CALS. We decided this year to take over the CALS program. And so I've done a very specific cost analysis on that and have bids that I'm going to start exercising at the beginning of the fiscal year. And that's a big cost. And that is to basically rehab the entire system, get it up to where now I can get it onto a maintenance program, replace all the broken speakers, have it inspected, change all the batteries out, make sure everything's tuned up and ready to go. And if we can get that done this next fiscal year, then we can get it onto a maintenance program and drop that cost down drastically. And that's something that the fire district wasn't really willing to do. And so that's something that we can do, and then move it into a maintenance program. We've also been very fortunate with our volunteers groups, whether it's Sunset Amateur Radio Club, CERT, MRC, and DART. They've also been able to pull grant funding in. So that's been another benefit to the emergency management program. Also at the bottom of this list here, you'll see the water filtration trailer. It's very, very important for us as we look at water resiliency, is you start talking about moving water. But what happens if we can't move water that's stored? How do we go get it? And so I want to build a water filtration trailer that will actually go to the springs, filter and treat the water, and then we can put it in smaller trailers that can actually take it to water distribution sites. And the one thing that I'm excited about is down in Manzanita, they're currently building one of these out of their public works yard. And if we build a similar one to them and we work with them, then we can borrow their trailer and vice versa and share these in communities and actually double up our horsepower to basically bring water to communities in case there's a disaster. Now, if there's a regionalized or a localized disaster, then yes, we can share each other's equipment. But if there's a regionalized disaster, then we will have our own. And so we get kind of our best bang for the buck. And we don't need more than one of these. We just need to build one, get it out at the site, and get it into a good storage position, and then make sure we maintain that year round. Besides that, there's a few different specifics in there about changing information that I have from just my department to getting my hands wrapped around the whole city. Where does emergency management work for, like, let's say communications or developing an IT program or improving the website? I think it has a lot of fingers in everybody's department, but not everybody is thinking globally. So my goal has been trying to look at this over the past year and try to think globally on the city and how can emergency management kind of start helping these departments. And so I put extra money in here to improve our website, make sure we have extra laptops and portable devices at our EOC, that kind of stuff to help the IT division. Some of those things also went to security cameras and those other things which help law enforcement and public works. But I think it's important, if we're ever going to see all those things happen, that you can kind of start seeing it in my budget versus a tiny bit here in everybody's budget. Maybe you can kind of start seeing it in emergency management budget. So I've been trying to get my hands wrapped around that. Besides that, there's been a lot of talk about what we're going to do in this next year. I would like to ask you guys if you have any questions about this budget.
What do you envision with the public education line, $13,000?
Yeah, public education right there is, I actually thought that I'd be good at this, and I'm not. What I want to do is even the video that the chamber made with Sam, that little video that was made in the very beginning of COVID went a long way. And it was, I think, a 3.5-minute video. But it took some good professional resources to make some of those things. So what's happening right now with Dagami on next Thursday is Dagami is going to come in there and they're going to give a presentation on Beat the Wave. My objective with Dagami is to go out and we have to change out all the signs. And we have to put signs that are smarter and a little bit more improved. And in the future, I want to basically on some of these signs have like either a QR code or ability for people to link on their smartphone and come up with a really quick short video of exactly what they're looking at and what does it mean for them. I don't think I can do that, but I know there's people that I can find that can do that and they can do it quickly and professionally. So my goal is to explore that as we change all these signs over in these messaging. It's almost more important that we have the ability as a community to do real-time training and testing, or not testing, but real-time training to visitors. If we can accomplish that goal and get some short videos out there at some public information locations and on our websites and have them professionally done, whether that's using some drone work, some of the stuff that goes over community development, working on our websites to have quick little video pops-ups, or every season there's a weather event that comes out and we can send out some of this information. That's real important to be able to get your hands on and stockpile it. And there's people out there that can do that for us pretty quickly. And we don't need a lot of it. We just need enough to where people have the awareness of city safety and how they operate around here. And that's what's in that budget line.
Thank you.
What is the coronavirus recovery fund?
That's the grant we got for $360,000. We applied for that grant and we were able to get it. And that was, they basically required us to use that for one item. And so we put that all into the cache site development. So we're going to develop all the cache sites with power, lighting, security cameras, and some sanitation.
Okay, and then the same thing for the next year.
Yeah, it's kind of going to bled over. It's about a little over 2-year grant that we have it. We kind of started late being organized for it. But now we're picking up speed, but it's about 2 years. So you'll see it kind of start where it was at 360 and hopefully we'll be able to get it all those costs taken care of, those expenditures.
If I can just jump in for a second. I think council's heard this, but staff went to a FEMA sponsored response session, on the response category. And as part of the reporting, Karen went through and talked about all the things that the city is doing. And when we were there for training, and the person that was training kind of went like this a little bit and then started walking around. He goes, that is what a resilient community sounds like, because not everybody's doing these things. So I think the city should be, proud of all the work that was done before and the work that we're able to go ahead and follow up with. I think it's really good stuff, and Rick, you're doing a good job on it.
Thank you. There is a lot of questions, though. A lot of these things are big ticket items, and the goal is to eventually change that from a big ticket item to a good, resilient, managed program that has the infrastructure of this equipment here and these things here, and that they're well maintained. And so these are big numbers. And I remember when Brandon first asked me when I gave a presentation in 2019, tell me about your hard costs and your soft costs, because I brought that in. And hopefully we're at the end of all these hard costs coming out. But my goal is in the fall is to take everybody, when we get the cache sites developed, I want to take everybody who's been involved in some of these supporting measures, council and this committee. I want to take you guys around and show you some of these things that we've built. What do they mean? What do they look like? Where are they specifically? So you have some confidence about what you're seeing is tangible. Anything else?
Go for it.
No? Okay.
Thanks, Rick.
By the way, I love sea turtles forever.
We know which budget we have.
It doesn't do.
I think we got some funds there we could use.
Next up is tourism and arts fund, page 50.
Currently have a unrestricted fund balance of 474,000. And we anticipate 70% that'll be TRT. And that's not the county, right? This is just
TAP.
TAP, I'm sorry. That's how much money they will be receiving from their 70% of 1%. And I'm sorry, I'm forgetting the second TRT, short term?
Short term, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, the 421 and the 59 are the $481,250, which is what you'll see in the other funds as well.
Okay, you found the transfer. I got you. Okay, thank you. Right.
Oh, I see. Okay.
And the final loan payment will be received from the county TRT fund. So that's that 34,000. That's the final payment on the loan.
That was the purchase.
So where are we at with the reserve on the TAP? I can't find it.
Well, your ending fund balance is $508,000. So pretty good.
In general, they've not gone for the whole amount that they were able to do. So 508, I think. Well, that would potentially put them in the position they try to.
Yeah, because that allows them then to draw from the 508 and not have to depend on what the current value is, and they could literally know exactly what they're getting as far as that. I like that. Good. But we tried to get to for a long time. Move on.
Transient tax fund.
All right, this is the other 70% of the 1%. This is the amount of money. So the revenue streams are the same, with the exception of, I put a line in here, revenue in excess of budget. And that's because we have to pay, currently we're paying 100% of the tax that's received. So if my budget estimate comes in higher, more than 5.5 million, then I have a problem because I don't have spending authority here to pay it out. So it's just a little convention where if it comes in higher, I have the spending authority to pay the chamber. So that's what that $96,250 is. But otherwise the revenue was the same, 481,250s in TAF. And then tourism promotions, that's the amount that we could pay the chamber.
So the revenue in excess of budget, is that equivalent to an ending balance? Or is that, how do you look at it?
It's balancing this budget because I'm adding that to the expenditure. So I'm adding a revenue of 96,000 and then adding to my expenditure. So it nets to zero.
But if underestimated, we receive more funds and authorized to pay out, you'd have to come back to the council and make a budget adjustment. Is
If
that
I did not put the 96 in there, that's correct.
just a cushion,
Yes.
which
And we are already contracted to pay them 100% of whatever we get. So, that's already been approved. We know that, but
okay.
Cushion, okay,
yeah.
got it. Thank you. That's county TRT fund, 57.
You want to do this? This is your
Yeah, well, it's the
School money.
But if you want to go through as far as the details, but I can talk about the school project itself.
Okay, so I'm assuming we'll receive $481,250 from the county. Although it hasn't been exactly matching up with our 1%, but that's just for consistency's sake. That's the revenue amount that I'm estimating. And so tourism promotion. So there, we can spend this money in here. And I filled in some areas like Cannon Beach Elementary maintenance. And I doubt that we'll be really spending any of this money next year because we're going to be renovating a new building with the bond proceeds. But there is money available if we should need excess funding for the renovation. I don't know. I just tried to put some dollars in various areas. So to make them flexible in case something comes up, we'll have the ability to spend whatever funds are needed.
And potentially for the debt service.
Well, yeah, that's in here too. So I've got the payment to the TAF fund, that 34,000, that's going out. And we have the debt service fund, $245,124. That'll make the first payment on the.
Any idea why the revenue from the county is not the same as the revenue from ours?
Because they don't account for it the same way I do. More of a, I don't know what they're doing. I've tried to find out, but it's not getting me anywhere.
First year it was significantly lower and we sent them everybody that we're currently receiving funding from on this. And there's a whole lot more we could do.
You
I
think
guess the
they're not,
understanding that I had when we we didn't get to allow it, but when it happened was that it would just be, they take our numbers and that's it. I'm curious.
They just, for some reason, they're taking the money they actually received and not our numbers. I don't understand.
The timing with them, they're not accruing the revenue to the quarter that it's earned in, like we do, that's how we do it. I mean, at year end, we know the 4 quarters were earned in our fiscal year. That's the amount of money that was earned, whether we,
So it sounds,
receive it in July, but we don't post it to that fiscal year. We get it in the proper fiscal year, even though we received the money in July. We book it back
theoretically, it would all come out in the wash somehow if.
with the county. Well, yeah, hopefully. They just don't match. So I don't have any idea of
Wow.
how the wash is going.
How much off are we?
Not a lot.
Well, how much is not a lot?
I don't know because
I mean, it's like over 100,000 or,
no. I mean, no, it's not off that much.
is it possible they're just not collecting all of it they should? That they're,
I don't know. Like Bruce said, we gave them all of our records so they could compare to make sure that they had the same people that we had, that they're collecting from that hotel and that hotel.
Right.
And they're not missing somebody. So they did that. And then it's a timing issue is what it is.
Unless they're holding funds for their services.
Well, I don't think so.
Which one I can think
I
of.
think they're using the money. It's kind of a cash flow thing. And
When you look at the actuals that you've got here from,
I don't know for sure, but
yeah, but when you look at the actuals, it's a chunk. 70,000 almost. So that's why I'm asking.
is this something we might want to get Ashley involved in?
our auditor.
I mean, they're
Or an auditor? Yeah.
they're giving us the money. I mean,
I don't even know if we have an agreement. They just
forward it.
Exactly. Well, we have that IGA
Yeah,
or
right.
something.
Anyhow, okay.
But it is something that we can just, I can ask a question. I'm on a call with the managers tomorrow. So, but the 245 for the debt service, that was always something that, made all this a little bit nervous because these funds could potentially, all of a sudden stop coming. I had a conversation with John Bone, and they are looking at some things. Their main focus is trying to get more money switched over on the general fund, the 70-30 switch. But he said we recognize that in different municipalities that commitments have been made, and he said, and we will honor those. So I'm taking that as a really good sign, not something that he can necessarily legally commit to, but they're recognizing that you're using funds for a public purpose. And so they're looking at other funds outside of what ours is.
In writing?
No, I'm telling you, he can't give us that. He's just saying in their conversations, y'all did some things, other places have done some things, we'll honor those. But that's just his decision at this point. And my reason for asking the question is like, do we have anything to worry about? Because we knew that they were asking some questions about TLT. And so the question was, is this something that you folks are looking to change? And the answer came back, as I said. So I see that as a very good thing. Would have been more concerned if they said, well, don't spend it. Or if you thought it was crazy, we didn't send it all to you, wait till you see what's going to happen. That's not what happened. It was a good response in my estimation. But I can't hold them to it.
Right.
Okay. Prepare for tax recommendations.
All right, the funds that are coming in, the study was done by Eco Northwest. They estimated $1,760,000 coming in. We have an agreement that roughly splits the funds, half between the fire district and half with the city, $180,000. And the funds will be split quarterly. So as the funds come in. Now we have a bunch of expenses that the fire district has taken responsibility for, where we spent funds and also they've done some too. That will all be sorted out in the first quarter because we are fronting those funds. For example, the grant program for the POS systems, we're paying 100%. They'll pay 50% in the first quarter. And we've had attorney's fees and other things that we'll settle up at that time.
So we're going to have expenses back and forth.
I think most will be us getting our half of theirs because there's no expense that I'm aware of that they would pay 100%. So what would happen is that I think we're going to be the bank. And so we'll kind of pay things as we go through and then we'll settle up in the next quarter. It may be possible that we can change that so that if we have a $100,000 expense, I don't know what it would be, but that we say you need to send us your 50 now. But if they don't do that, then we can withhold the 50 at the next quarter.
The expenditure for the grants for the point of sale systems, where's that coming from?
It'll come from the first quarter.
But out of this fund or?
No, it'll come from general fund.
Okay.
That's in this year's budget.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then we will sort that out once we get there.
Bruce, read the line that has the contingency for 20% of expenditures. Is that we'll have 176,000 and the fire department will have 176,000.
I think we just have to change it to
No,
20%.
I just put a contingency in there
Yeah.
in case
The
we.
number represents 10%.
20% of half though.
That's what my question is.
Well, if you take the contingency of 176 and add the ending fund balance of 704,000, that's 880,000.
Okay,
So that's where our share landed in the budget.
all right. I took 10% from something else.
No, you did it correctly, if you're trying to fund the 10%. It was out of the 1.6 million.
I think so.
I see.
You did good.
$69.
The RV park. Okay. Right. Every year, while we're developing the budget, we meet with Escape Lodging, and they are the management company for our RV park. They prepare a budget. And so these numbers here are primarily, with a few exceptions, straight out of the budget that they prepare. We talk about capital outlay items at this meeting, and just to, get an idea of how things are going at the RV park. They usually have a PowerPoint presentation for us. And so the internal service amounts those are our numbers. Admin services down under materials and services. The insurance line is for the pollution insurance regarding the fuel station. Facility maintenance, that's our number as well. That's in case something comes up that we need to work on over there. And then the overhead numbers come from the budget that they give us. They're going to do a lighting project out there next year, and that's $35,000 under capital outlay. We're transferring to the general fund $300,000 and transferring to the RV park reserve $59,969. We have a contingency of 20% and an ending fund balance of 300,000. Oh yeah, and then the revenue up there, top 2.6 million. It's the escape lodging estimate.
What was that last thing you said? What part was just the escape lodging estimate?
Revenue,
Oh,
revenue up at the top under resources,
okay, thank you.
2.6 million. They estimated that for us.
So when I go to a conference or somebody asks me how much does the city profit from that business? Can I say, can I add up the ending fund balance and the two transfers and call them what we've earned from it? Okay,
What we're estimated to,
what we're estimated, but
yeah, but you can look over here at the actuals like 2020.
Yeah.
And you can see that we had an ending fund balance in 2020 of 551,000. So yeah, that could be the excess revenues over expenditures.
cool.
And then $1 million in 2021.
Yeah, well, that's an anomaly, we hope. Actually,
No, we don't hope.
2021 was unexpected, I should say.
Yeah,
I just like, because it's one of those things that I can talk about what we do in the city that's different than a lot of other cities, is that we have our own little side business. And it works really well as far as pulling in some revenue.
mhm.
Lori, what makes up the overhead, the 2.125?
That is all the expenses that they incur through operations.
And it's gone up $1 million over the last 3 years, so they have a good justification for that, or, I mean, does the city feel comfortable with why that's changed? They haven't increased or
mean-
decreased any spots.
No, but I think some of their labor costs have gone up just because of the current situation in the labor market. I think so. They've done that. Yeah, I don't know.
But isn't management fee kind of, I mean, that's not their hourly employees, obviously, that's on top of it, but you know, that's also revenue for, so I'm just trying to understand why the big, I mean, that's a lot of jump with, you know, just to put it in employees. And I've never seen what the city receives in terms of, you know, here's where we spend the money.
Yeah, well, they report to me every month, so I can see that. Our adopted budget in the current year is 1.8 million. So then a leap to 2.1, I don't think is, I mean, things are increasing, costs are increasing. But, you know, that's to me is not a huge jump, I don't think.
I was actually comparing the year before that in 19 to 20. So it's been $1 million from 3 years ago.
Right.
So just curious. Just seems like a big number.
Do we know how many staff they run out there?
Oh, gosh. No, not.
Okay.
I mean, there's a manager, assistant manager, and then they have, you know, probably.
We had a joint meeting with them before COVID. It might be time to maybe do another joint meeting, work session with them, just to get an update on those kinds of questions that Greg is asking.
I would just be curious of, like, you know, Sam, you mentioned other people in other communities. I think like Charleston has a RV park. But you know, what is the industry average on profitability on RV parks? And are we meeting that, or are we not? Because making 300 and some odd thousand on 3 million in revenue isn't that much, you know, that's not very profitable.
Okay, I do know one thing that is in this overhead number, and it's the fuel costs. So I know that that's driving a lot of that as well.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, because they're looking at the situation now and predicting that fuel cost is going to continue to be high like it is in this budget year, 2023. So that is a significant part of it as well.
But they sell the fuel.
Huh?
They're not using the fuel, they sell the fuel. Isn't that?
But it's in cost of goods sold. So it's an expenditure, you know, and the
Yeah.
profit margin isn't really great, but you still have to record the costs.
No, I get it now. Yeah, makes
Yeah,
sense.
okay.
And the revenue from the fuel sales is included in the RV park revenue?
Yep.
You have a feel for how this year's actuals are going to end up?
Pretty good, because I've got a good beginning fund balance here of $1 million. So it's going to be good.
It'll be way better than the budget, right?
Okay.
Hopefully.
Do you have any idea why the facility maintenance at 60,000 is so much higher than not only the last adopted budget, but 1920 and 2021?
I just made a decision to increase it because there were excess funds available. And I thought, you know, having that there as a backup plan, not necessarily meaning that it will be spent, but in case, it's just an in case thing.
So we've gone through and kind of took care of all the sewer and electrical work in past years. So I guess and the roads.
Roads haven't been taken.
Yeah, they put that off, didn't they?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But then that'd be under, wouldn't be under maintenance.
We're not planning anything big other than the lighting, and that's a reasonable project.
Yeah. Seems like lighting's, or the maintenance.
Yeah.
A little high.
We can set something up, and go ahead and go through those numbers.
That's a good idea.
I wonder how long, it looks like they're just passing through the additional cost for fuel, and that's what's hitting revenue. It's like it's just kind of like a pass through. I wonder how long that's sustainable. They can keep passing through these incremental costs, or they start losing business.
I think what they do is, as far as fuel, because they want to try to be able to help people local. And is that what they're looking at is what the cost of fuel is in Seaside. And then they like maybe at 10 cents a gallon. So I think like marketing is kind of, as far as the cost of fuel and what the market rate is, they do that. There's a hamburger place called Checkers in Florida. And they spend very little money on research about where to locate their stores. They just put them by McDonald's. So I think what they're kind of doing the same thing, and looking at the what the market is and what the cost is, and then putting the additional cost on it. I try to check it anytime I buy gas, and then I go through. Usually it's around the time.
Any other comments or questions on your RV park? Next is the RV park reserve.
Okay, so any fund balance is $290,922. You can see the transfer in from the RV park here, $59,969. And then the capital outlay totals $350,891. Paving is got $284,969. I don't think we've got a really good estimate on what that will cost, but I think that 350,000 is, could be used for that whenever the city wants to start that project. So funds are available.
Next is debt service fund.
Okay. We're starting with a fund balance of $35,000. We're going to levy a tax, property tax, in the amount of 407. Well, the levy is more like Paul was asking me about this today.
933.
Yeah. We're levying $429,933. And we'll expect to receive $407,896 after discounts and uncollectible amounts. Remaining $9,000 for prior taxes. You can see the transfer from the general fund that we spoke about earlier, $200,904. And now you can see the money coming in from the county TRT fund, $245,124. And all of that is to pay debt service on the, what are we doing in here? It's getting messy. Our full faith and credit bond issue for the Cannon Beach Elementary is in here. Pay principal and interest. And then the refunded bonds are in here. Okay, the refunded principal is $550,000 and $81,400 of interest. And then the rest of that is the Cannon Beach Elementary bond issue. And the expenditures are 876, 524, and that leaves us an ending fund balance of $20,000.
The 185 from the 2022 FFC.
That's
The
for
difference-
Cannon.
But the difference, when you go to page 118, and it says that the facility fund has got 1,400. Is that the difference? The bond was for 4 million.
4.6, yeah.
Right. So what's the difference between the 414?
Okay. So we received the money in the current year, so that's going to be in a fund in the current year. What we do is we record the bond proceeds of 4.6 million, and then all the costs of issuance is an expenditure. So that's what this is. This 4.4 million is after we paid all of the issuance costs.
2010 and 2012 go bonds actually non-existent anymore. Deserves a party, doesn't it? I know, we knew about it last year, but now it's actually a dash.
Chair, could we take a 5-minute break?
Okay. Next up is tourism facility renovation. Fund, Page 1.
Yes, we talked about a minute ago, there's out of the 4.6 million, there's a remainder of 4,414,000 change. And there are, I think, about 800,000 to $1 million that's going to be taken from that based on the reimbursement resolution. And so that would pay for the 2 roofs and the architectural fees that we'd spent so far, some studies, things like that. So this number will come down, but it's all related to the construction project or the at least the preparation for the project. And remember, the budget is actually 5.5. We didn't want to over borrow. And so this is another one that we are anticipating that we would do a 30-year loan on, but do it in conjunction with the City Hall project. And what it is, when we talked about the difference between the 4.6 million and the 4.4 million, that's the cost of issuance. And so if we do all of these loans individually, we're going to have costs of issuance. And so we'll have one cost of issuance if we can go ahead and combine those. The decision, it's a policy decision that'll need to be made. Do we want to wait until we have the cash to pay for them? Do we want to reduce the balances we have, for example, in the general fund? Or do we want to try to pay these things over 30 years, which is beyond their useful life? So, but that's the 4.4 million. Again, I think there's about $1 million, just under $1 million would be on the reimbursement side. But that'll take care of most of the heavy lifting that we've done so far.
Comments, questions? This is the administrative services fund. Executive, page 125.
Cheers. Oh, I'm sorry. I thought that this was like the one that we charged back everybody else.
Okay. Well, it is, but this is where you spend your money.
Mhm.
Want me to do it?
Yeah, please go ahead, because I know you worked on this longer than I did.
This one-
And that was in my head, was in a completely different place.
On this one, we did went ahead and increase legal services. We've had a lot of additional things, legal service charges with the prepared food tax, but not knowing what the upcoming year was going to bring, we went ahead and bumped it up a little bit. We had a couple other increases, computer expenses, just because we weren't sure how our computers were working in case something came up. And I think it was in dues, we had to bump up because the annual subscriptions that we have for memberships, a couple of them did increase. The majority of everything will stay the same.
Why have we eliminated the fuel and vehicle repairs?
Because Bruce is,
We don't have a vehicle anymore.
yeah.
That's the only vehicle.
And then just so everyone knows, we are gonna start on the scanning project again. We had that on hold because of that software glitch. But Katie and I kind of worked out a plan to get history by locations out there and scanned. So we're actually very excited to get those files in searchable format and out of the office.
The last line on here, the grant consultant. That's one that, like Rick said, he's already started to use Crest, but that's what we're talking about.
Contractual service, 8,000, is that for the scanning?
Yes.
Yes. Good. Page 126, administrative services fund.
Okay. An increase in staffing resources. So I have an additional 1 FTE here represented. Personnel services, that includes, of course, the 5% COLA. And under materials and services, that went up a couple $1,000. Audit fees went up a little bit. And other than that, pretty much everything else is the same.
Administrative services fund, IT. Page 7.
Yeah, there's not a lot of changes on the IT budget. We're pretty much in maintenance mode. So most of my costs are software related or services that are needed for running City Hall. I did have some minor changes in software. We're going to be upgrading the server software. There's a little bit of money to change or clean up some stuff on the website. I had looked at doing some replacements for the hardware on our servers. They're about 5 to 6 years old, getting closer to 6 years old. But with where we are with the City Hall project, I decided to wait and see if we're going to couple that together with replacing everything when we do that, or how we're going to handle that. So I did not put that in this year's budget. Questions?
Other than how you do all of what you do, I'm amazed, Rusty. Thank you.
I was looking for expense for a clone in here.
I'm kidding.
We were talking about it, but Jen said, no.
We were gonna clone her too.
Yeah, well, yeah, we're all about that.
Thanks, Rusty.
Yes, thank you.
Administrative services fund, central services, page 129.
Okay, this department accounts for indirect costs that aren't directly attributed to the finance department. And so overarching expenses here for the whole city. The primary increase here is from insurance. It was from 183,500 in the current year to 209,000. Other than that, everything is pretty much on par with 2022.
Thank you. We're up to the point of public comments. Public comments. Please.
Say thank you. It looks like we might be getting some more funding for the trees from what Sam brought up earlier. I have to leave for a meeting very soon, so I just wanted to say thank you. Whatever you can put forward, especially the city arborist being more involved, especially with our private trees. We just lost so many, and anyway, you know what I'm saying. So thank you very much in advance. I hope.
Thank you, Jim.
You know, there was a letter we received, that made like public comment, I think from Jim Ramey, about why the water rate went higher than previously anticipated.
Yeah, I can address that.
Good.
The model that everybody's referring to, and that was the 8%. That was based on what we knew at the time and what was anticipated in terms of the bond and how that was going to increase. What the actual, when we start looking at the 15% and the 9%, I think it is those bonds plus projects that we're going to do. So the funds, the numbers, the rates for the projects where we borrowed the funds from Business Oregon, those were accounted for in there. But we have several waterline projects that are going to be done, and I think a couple of projects in the wastewater side. For example, we tried to get a grant for $100,000 to buy the generators, and Karen reported that didn't work, and so now we're buying generators. So that's where the difference is, if there's additional work. Now, in looking at that, as a result of the comment and the investigation, I know everybody gets really freaky when I say that my preference in big dollar items is to borrow. And so there are some projects that are probably too small to go through the process of the Business Oregon. But if we want to try to smooth that increase, and this is what happens when we were talking, if you try to go ahead and do the project all at once, you go boom. That's, your rates or whatever. So if we could potentially, and I'm not sure this can happen, but if we were to put in an item on the city hall, and again, the reason for the city hall is each one of these is going to have a cost of issuance. And if we can go ahead and just say, one thing, one cost of issuance, then potentially we could also smooth out some projects that are going to have, 30, 50-year lives, and then have everybody pay for them along the way. Or we're going to see these kind of bumps. Now, possible once you put the bumps in, then the rate won't change the next time, because you're going to have to go ahead and generate that much to do the next project. So it's really, I can't tell you which one is the best financially, unless we try to just set call it a budget of how many projects we can do in upcoming years for water and wastewater that are beyond those that are covered by loans. But that's where the numbers are jumping.
If I'm not reading this right, essentially the water master plan had a number of projects laid out.
Mm-hmm.
And rates earlier were developed kind of on the assumption of these projects being done over a period of time.
Well, actually of known projects.
Yeah.
And
Now we've moved some of those projects up.
yes, yeah, but the projects that we put in, that were in the model, are ones that you knew that we were working on and were in the budget. And so now what you're correct, when you start putting something that's not in it, but it was kind of like this overall water line replacement. If you put something like that in, that's on the page you go, that makes it jump.
Yeah.
But it's also possible that if the number is roughly, 150,000, that potentially we could do $150,000 in, the next year without raising rates, but we still have to collect those funds that we were going to do project A, but now we're going to use those funds for project B.
Yeah.
And we can try to, take a deeper dive on that between now and the time you would actually approve the rates.
I think we need to look, I think we need to look at that a little more closer than this meeting here.
Sure. As far as the way you pay for it, I think we do that deeper dive, but the projects that are in there and on the list need to be done. So I don't know if we were going to discuss those. I forgot what projects, maybe you recall, but there are projects that we put in that need to be done. And we're anticipating doing it next year. And they are not necessarily the ones that are paid for already. And we received the funds to be able to go ahead and do those from Business Oregon.
The way the budget's set up, it's assuming this rate increase to generate the revenues to cover the capital expansion programs.
The additional replacements.
Yep.
And I want to be careful. That's yes,
correct.
that's where that's coming from.
So if we approve this budget today, then then the water rates will increase by 15%.
I think if we approve the budget today, it doesn't mean you're going to increase the rates. That's a separate step.
Well, she just nodded, yeah. I'm a little
Well,
confused.
yeah, but you still have another step to.
Because you need that extra revenue to be able to spend the money that you're appropriating. We can't have a shortfall of revenue and then still expect to be able to spend everything in here. I mean, they're all estimates, but
Strictly, from a process standpoint, if we approve that, are we approving that, 15 and 9% rate increase? Or is that going to come?
No, we'll do that separately.
Right. And so if we don't, suppose we don't do the 15 and the 9, or whatever the difference between the 15 and 8. If we don't do that, then those projects would not be done.
There would not be funding for them.
Yes.
If you don't pass the resolution with the higher rates, then you can't do the projects.
Right, and that's what would come out of it.
Yeah,
The
you'll
other
have
ones-
a shortfall.
The other ones, we already have commitments for, that we signed agreements and,
Yeah.
but those we do not. So I think that there's that possibility to have that discussion at that time.
Yeah, I mean, we passed the budget now and we got the 15% increase. But can we have a discussion about how we really pay for that 15% increase?
That's what I'm saying, we have the
saying.
time between now and the time you raise rates, we had that time to
Okay.
talk about it.
At what point will that be, Bruce? At what point will that be?
If that's a discussion we're gonna have, I would say it's, what's the next work session?
No, I'm sorry. At what point would the rates be increased? I know it's
July 1,
of 2023,
22.
22. Okay.
I think we need to have a discussion. I mean, I don't mind passing the budget now, but I think we need to have a discussion about how we're paying for it. And that 15% is a big increase for a lot of people.
And I understand, I totally understand that, but if you're gonna do projects, the alternative is we've got a plan for another way to go ahead and fund them over a long
Exactly,
period
and
of
that's why I
time.
say that we need to
Right.
have a
And I just
discussion.
don't know if, folks' appetite, because the project that we're talking about for the city hall, there's several things, for example, like approximately $1 million from Cannon Beach Elementary. And potentially this one, especially if we're going to, let me see. The difference, it's like suppose we put another 150,000 in. Then once that rate has increased, $150,000. And if we don't raise rates, but we're going to generate that $150,000 again, potentially we could be doing a series of projects that way on pay as you go. But if we, so that kind of takes care of itself over time. If we do it on a loan, you have to kind of borrow all the money you're ever going to do projects for. And I wouldn't recommend that. I would say if you want to do it for just part of the projects or something. So it is something we have to analyze. But there's benefits to, maybe we do a step increase, or I don't know exactly, but we can look at other alternatives to fund.
Well, that's what I'm
the
asking, so we
upcoming
look at
years.
other alternatives.
Yes.
Still a little lost here. So by passing the budget as it is right now, we automatically kick in the rate increase. No,
No, you're creating capacity.
creating a capacity to do that when we decide to do it.
When you,
Okay, that's the summary I needed.
Yes.
No, it's not automatic when you pass the budget.
Right. The budget does assume you are going to do it.
Yeah, and it assumes we're going to do other projects as well. So that-
Okay. That clarifies that. So then we'll have another discussion about that eventually. Okay.
And it may be worth, y'all are gonna love to hear this, from a council standpoint, we're talking about rates, it may be worth it to do a special meeting. Because we've got only a month, like we're almost at the end of May. And then we have a month before the rates have to be in place in order to raise the revenues that we're talking about.
So why do they have to be in place at a certain time?
That's go in by the July 1st.
Well, it's like getting paid at your job. If you don't get paid, start getting paid till like the third month, then you don't have the money you would have gotten for the first couple of months. So the rates is based on starting as of a certain date. You're going to accumulate a certain amount of money that you'll have when you need it. Now, is that the end, is it the end of the world? No, it's not. But we would need to figure out something, in the interim, what the potential impacts of that would be. But not doing it does create a problem.
And the estimate is based on 12 months of revenue.
Okay. But the estimate is also based on an actual or a number that we could change that number, or we could find alternate sources. So
Right.
that estimate could still be less than what
Yes.
it's just that we're gonna pump other money from other places.
Right.
Okay.
Since this is such a short period of time between
Yeah.
now and when the rates need to go into effect, does it make sense to hold off on the budget until we know exactly what the rates, what we're gonna do with the rates?
I don't think so. It would be good to, if you're okay with everything else in the budget, then it would make sense to pass the budget. If you have any questions, we'll go ahead and solve them. If you reach the point that you're willing to pass the budget, then let's do that. And then the thing that's in question will be the rate increase, which the council can have a discussion on. But I don't think that, I don't know if we would pass or we would make all decisions. I mean, there's a lot of, Sam asked good questions, Nancy did. I don't know if we'll have all the answers by July 1st, and we have to have a budget.
Well, I agree with the fact that the budget just gives us the window. It's the discussion that what I don't like is the fact that we're putting ourselves any time limit. Right. If we want to work it out, we can do that, but I want to make sure we schedule some meetings to get it done.
And I think that what would be missing, we would still be collecting rates. My example of not getting paid was not a good one. You would still be collecting the existing rates. But we would need to have some number, like an 8% increase or something. I'll have to make that up. And then the difference, the 7% or whatever would be, when we decide to do that project. But, there are cost implications to this. And I understand how it happened. We had a model of one number, but we didn't include this type of project. And now it's there now, and we're looking at a significant increase. But, so we'll have a discussion and talk about how to accomplish the projects that were added on a pay-as-you-go. But we still have to reach the 8% for the debt service for the projects. And we'll talk about what some of those options are for that to occur when we bring them to you.
Let me I think I heard you correctly. I just wanted to make sure. If we don't make the decision by July 1st and we continue with the existing rates for a period of time, are we going to have to impose more than a 15% increase so we can get the revenue we need for the budget?
I think there's two pieces. One is the 8%, which was the anticipated to pay for the debt service, the projects that we've got underway. Then there's the pay-as-you-go, which I'm assuming is roughly like the 7%. If we don't do that as of July 1st, then we will be, I don't know if it's 12th of 8% or whatever, but we will be missing that starting with July. So there's going to be a portion of the 8% that we won't be collecting. So it's not going to impact just the pay-as-you-go project that we're talking about, how we would fund it. Right. If we can, if we can provide alternatives, or maybe it's possible to go ahead and put off, the project a little bit. There are things that we can do, but every potential option has some implications. So if we can find an alternative for what the additional 7% might be, maybe we go ahead and we do the 8%. We already talked about it, and that's what people expected. And we look at funding for the other part of it. Well, then, Okay. Anybody not confused?
There's something that I'm really not confused about, and I want to be pretty vocal about it, is that this is short notice. And while you've said that we have agreed to these projects, which is true, what we weren't aware of was that it was going to add an increase above what we had projected to the public.
Right.
And that's my biggest problem with it.
Okay. But the amount that we projected is the number that for the projects that we have already said, for example, the meter modules, for the things to make sure the water doesn't flow out of the tanks that we've got coming up. All those were approved, and all of those were known what the amount is going to be. And so that's the 8%. But you're right. What we did is we put on other projects which were not included in that financing set. And so that's where I think we need to look at what other alternatives there are. And that's what Nancy asked us to bring. So I understand what your concern is, but we always said there would be the 8%.
Yes.
So the discussion will be, do you want to replace that water line? How can we replace it? Do we have another funding source?
I just need to, feel like we can justify this to the rate paying public.
Sure.
And it seems difficult for me to do that when, it makes sense to me in that the projects cost what they cost, and we know they've been identified and need to be done. I just, it's the sticker shock.
I think that what we will do different the next time, normally you would have heard about these projects as part of this process. And so we put them in as part of this process, and it changed a number from an 8 to a 15. And that, I understand that sticker shock. what we should have done is said, okay, we've got these projects coming up. We should have done it a couple of months ago and said, you got the 8%, and this is what the conversation we want to have soon should have happened back here. But from a staff standpoint, when we were putting the thing together, it was like, well, this is when we always bring the projects. And I can see how that happened. And it could have been done better. And we said, these are what the projects are going to be a while back. So we could have had the discussion before tonight.
And then I don't know how feasible it is, but it's possible that maybe we just need to reprioritize some of these projects and, you know, kick the can down the road.
And delay some or defer some to the following year.
At least the possibility.
After year.
And there are certain projects that we've signed agreements for, so I think.
That I understand.
Okay. Yeah.
I appreciate your candor at this point, I guess, and exactly what you're saying about how to do this better moving forward is encouraging to me.
Yeah, yes, and we will.
Okay, thank you.
But yeah, but hopefully we'll be able to we'll talk about there. It's fine. Okay.
Okay, any other comments? All right. So, whereas pursuant to Oregon budget law, after careful consideration, Cannon Beach's Budget Committee has comprised and approved a balanced budget for the city of Cannon Beach for fiscal year 2022-2023. Whereas the proposed fiscal year 2022-2023 budget contains best estimates for projected revenues and expenditures. And whereas the Budget Committee has reviewed all estimated revenues and expenditures, for all city departments and funds, fiscal year 2022-2023, making modifications and changes where appropriate. Therefore, the Cannon Beach Budget Committee has approved and authorized the city to levy the permanent rate of 0.7049 per thousand of assessed value for the general fund, to levy 429,933 for bonded debt, and to levy 0.2590 per thousand of assessed value for the Cannon Beach Road District. After completing all obligations required under Oregon budget law, the Cannon Beach Budget Committee hereby approves the fiscal year 2022-2023 proposed budget as amended, comprised of revenues and expenditures for all city funds and departments, and submits the approved fiscal year 2022-2023 budget to the City Council for further consideration and recommended adoption.
Before we go further, I would like to make an amendment. And actually in 2 line items, I would like to add some funding for the trees.
Sam, can you refer to a page number?
I will.
Okay.
Under community development, the consultant tree we discussed before.
Which page are we on?
Hang on, I'll find it. 33.
Thank you.
And it's consultant trees permit, which is the arborist. 60.
30.
Yeah, 33. I'm sorry.
Consultant tree permits.
Arborist. I would propose we add 5,000 there. Allow Jeff to have some leeway when it comes to getting the arborist when we need him.
How much did you say?
5.
5?
Adding 5,000.
I'm just spitballing here, but, and the other line item I'm thinking about is the next, so the page 35 is under parks. And I'm just going to assume it's community forestry, which is now 30,000. We lost Trevor, but I'm thinking that would be the appropriate place to add some more so that the trees that Kirk nurses for us, we can boost that a little bit. We can have more trees to plant when we want to plant them. So I don't know. Pick a number. I don't know what that would cost, so.
Procedural question. Do you have to find the place where it comes from? Does it come from ending fund balance or beginning fund balance in the general fund? Or how do you choose to increase a line item?
Yeah, we should make that. We can just use reduce ending fund balance.
I have a procedural question also. Paul, what you read, was that in the form of a motion? Or was it just a statement?
This is a statement.
Okay.
No, it's motion.
Is it a motion?
It is a motion.
Okay, then. No, that's okay. But if it was a motion, if I need a second, and then Sam needs to make a motion or make an adaptation.
Amendment.
Recommended motion is in your staff report.
Okay, it's right here. I didn't read that yet, though.
Okay, so there's been no motion yet?
You're just getting through the boilerplate, right?
Right.
You read the orders.
I read the orders.
Okay.
I'm making a motion before we actually get into the motion to commit to the budget. I guess.
Yeah, probably should do your amendments first.
Yeah, I just thought that was easier.
Okay, can I clarify your?
Please.
So it's general fund, community development, and under consultant tree permits, we're adding $5,000 to that line. And then general fund parks, community forestry,
Yes.
and we didn't decide on a dollar amount yet?
10,000.
10,000?
Yeah, because the actual already has been almost 40,000, so.
I'm sorry, Mike, what was that?
When you go back and look at the actuals for most services, back 2021, the amount was 39, almost $40,000.
Oh, okay.
I'm just saying, let's keep it at that and make the budget, instead of 30,000, make it 40,000. That could work for you.
I'm okay with that.
Okay.
And make the adjustments the same way out of the
ending fund
balance.
Be appropriate to ask for a second.
Got a second. We need a roll call on this or an aye?
Aye.
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 Yes, that works.
Say aye.
I did.
Well, against your own amendment.
Just to confuse people.
Just for the sake of discussion, I'll make another motion and my feelings will not be heard if there's not a second. But I move that we consider changing the sea turtles to a grant instead of a line item.
I'll second, Alicia, just for the discussion purposes. So would the grant be in the form of a line item or forcing them to go through the community grant process?
My idea would be to put it back through the community grant process. And I know that you don't like to make exceptions. I think maybe a one-time thing to put something back into a better process, I'm more comfortable with than creating an ongoing line item. And that would be my justification for offering the motion. But I don't have to answer to people the way you guys do. So.
Considering that they have applied, what we would be doing is just guaranteeing their application.
Yeah, because they're not late this year. They were late in the past.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I know you already seconded it.
And the point I would want to make is that maybe Robin, you remember, did they get like double the requests from what they have available?
No.
No?
For the community grants?
Yeah.
No, they've never gone above what the ask is. Community grants have never done that.
No, I know, but were the requests higher than that? And then they had to make decisions and some people didn't get all that they wanted.
Yes,
Right.
you're
happens.
referring to the competition.
Right.
Yeah, that happens every year.
From that standpoint, if there's no way to guarantee them 10,000, they will just go through. And I think in the past they've gotten 2. And I don't know how much they would get, because till we go through the process. So they may or may not, they may get the 10, they may get less. So as long as we all understand that if it comes out of here, and then it's like, we'll go ahead and good luck on the grant, which is already in place, so we don't have to do anything.
And this is, we've been here before. This exact same thing happened. And I'd like to voice my support for the line item. I believe it's something that is a service that's provided for our community. And through the competition for the community grant, they aren't guaranteed the amount of money. And he has stated in the past that they need to be able to hire people because they only have a limited amount of time to be able to do what they need to do. And so that's where my support lies.
And I have said in the past that, and I haven't had a response to this yet, that I would sure like to see some guidelines drawn in terms of who, what kind of agency or service becomes a line item and what kind of guidelines they have to follow in order to do that. Because we've had this discussion at least twice, if not 3 times. And I've never seen any guidelines in terms of how you become a line item in a budget. So I would like to see that.
In the same point of discussion here, I'm kind of in the middle here. I actually would prefer it to go to a contractual service, like we do the sanitary services, and let staff sort out what the requirements are and just say we have a line item for a contractual service for beach cleaning. That way it's not 100% specific for sea turtles, but it is because they're the only ones doing it.
Except for Solve. Solve does beach cleanup.
Well, they're not doing what again, we'd have to specify what we're asking for them to do, and that's the micro plastics out of the sand. Salt doesn't do that.
They're always asking for money.
Yeah, that's true.
So.
And also, when we talk about microplastics, I'm thinking it's smaller than a water bottle.
Yeah.
Well, that's
a finger.
a misnomer because the microplastics come in as microplastics, but the larger plastics come in and break down and turn into microplastics. It's a never ending vicious cycle.
Yeah.
And so whatever can be taken out of the beach is preferable. And to your point about how when they sift everything, they're not just getting, they get a lot of stuff. And it's difficult to measure that. But without them, it's not getting done. So I think we need to work with their system and have an inherent amount of trust. But to Sam's point, that if it were a contractual service, we could certainly know how many hours were worked and certainly get some tangible result for that.
And we actually have contractual services listed as a line item under Public Works, public restrooms and litter that had nothing lined this year because that was a separate contractual service sometime in the past. I don't even know what that was, but.
What if I withdraw the motion and offer a substitute motion to make it a contractual service?
Brandon didn't have to second your withdrawal.
I certainly would do that if that's what's necessary. I think there's still a little bit to discuss under the current motion. And that is, having the absence of Mr. Ward here, I'm not sure exactly. I mean, I'm sure he would work with what we presented, but Bruce, is the $10,000 something that you put in the budget, or was that what was asked for?
I asked him. Called him and asked what he would like to see as a line item.
Okay.
That was your direction, was to talk to Mark.
Great.
See how much you want to put in.
Okay.
Well, we could move that $10,000 to the contractual services area. And then instruct him and staff to look at the contract.
That would come before the city council.
That's the amount, wouldn't have to.
Because it's under, what's the threshold?
10,000 is the direct award threshold.
Okay. So as long as it's not $10,001, we're okay. Okay.
If I can just chime in, if you want them to do it, and it's going to be as vague, I guess, probably not the exact right word, to be like man hours or something like that. My preference would be that it is a grant, because we're going to be spending a lot of time trying to figure out what is the right measure, do we weigh it, all these other things. And if the intention is just to have them do that work, then they can do an hourly, a man-hour report or something. We can put it in the report that you get at the end of the agenda for every meeting, whatever they report to us. But to try to go ahead and turn it into a contract, I don't think it changes the outcome. And frankly, it's a little bit of busy work trying to find a way to justify it. It's like, if you want to do it, and I think you're doing the right thing, but just say that we will do this, this will be in the form of a grant.
Yeah, but then you run into what Nancy was concerned about what is the threshold for anybody else asking for some sort of grant.
But my concern is the threshold is going to be busy work.
Okay.
It's not really, we don't have a real solid thing to get there. Somebody else we might, and I think we need to have that discussion. But, you're doing it one time, but I think
You can have a contract that says that for $10,000, we'll work on a beach to remove microplastics and report quarterly, or, whatever time, how that 10,000 is spent. Is it spent hauling trash off? Was it spent to pay your volunteers? Volunteers get paid, anyway, pay your staff. And that's, or here's $10,000 to cover the your expenses for providing microplastic removal for the summer of 2022.
And that way too, if we don't like what they're doing, we can stop the contract. I'm not sure once you're on a grant, on a line item grant situation that we're talking about, that it's that easy to just say, nope.
But if you give them a grant, then we give them the money. If you want a contract, then they need to report to us, and they will get a portion of that money based on weight or man hours. Because the contract, our contractors don't get all the money at the end and then kind of tell us what they did. They do it based on an amount of work. That's why I'm concerned to try to go ahead and create whatever that work is in that measure. And then we'll be doing partial payments, and it's like, I would just prefer, I'll stop it. I would prefer you just give it to them as a grant, because it's going to be a lot of other stuff associated with making the contract happen.
Does a contract also trigger insurance requirements, maybe
Yeah.
things that you wouldn't want to get into? So, okay, I withdraw that motion too.
Yeah, and yeah, the liability insurance, he would require
Well, in that case,
$2 million.
but in that case, I'm still considering what Nancy's concerned about. I think I'm concerned about it too, is the fact that now we're giving a past grant requester a freebie grant. And that means everybody else is going to go, oh, maybe I should start asking for
That's what I'm
the
worried.
line item instead. And I don't want that to start happening. So in that case, that sends us all the way back to a straight line item that says their name.
And
it's not a grant then.
right, and if you are concerned about what other people are going to say, well, I'll do it as a contract if I do such and such. Well, you're kind of saying that, I'm sorry, I think your point comes down to, Sam, is I don't know, kind of lost it, but just the idea is, do we just want to give them the money to do this? And that's what I was kind of hearing. But I think based on the criteria, just about anybody that's currently getting a grant that was concerned about the competition, we could write a contract for them. It's just as meaningful as what this one will be. So it's just, what do you want to do with this?
I want to just leave it in the TAC for, I don't know, apply for a grant like everybody else.
Yeah.
Community.
Yeah.
Grant.
And I'm not sure what.
And let them make their pitch to that committee,
right?
You know, and how important it is. I think they'll recognize how important it is.
Yeah, but.
And they only get $2,000.
That's the problem. They don't get they don't get what I think the community needs. And I think the community needs an obvious and visible effort of the beach cleanup. And I think that's why this is a service that we are requesting. That's why I think it should be under a contract.
This has larger implications in that if we can establish this as a program, as Mark had stated, this can have the potential to gain momentum to move to other communities that, as he stated, is sorely needed.
Is there any way it could be put under the HRAP program?
It would be a hard squeeze because it's not really about haystack rock. But also, I don't know if it changes anything unless you're talking about making his people employees.
Yeah, that's the problem.
HRAP volunteers, which kind of steers them kind of far away from where they are focused.
There's also the whole effort to make Chapman Point a, what do they call it?
Oh, yeah.
A marine sanctuary.
Marine sanctuary. I don't know if there's any potential for it coming under that as well. I'm trying to think out of the box.
Problem is, he wants a grant. Asking for a grant. If, you know, no real strings attached, just give us a grant. So you do that as a budget line item. I'm just being too narrowly focused. But
Well, I do take a broader view of this. I'm not as narrowly focused and concerned about that. It represents a absolutely minuscule portion of our overall budget.
Yeah.
And it's something that's a very tangible benefit for the community.
Great.
But the potential is there to open doors to all kinds of other requests.
I guess that's the balance. Do we?
I mean, yeah.
Are we cautious about opening doors, or are we overly concerned about a little extra work for the staff?
Why do we see this one so important? We'll put it as a line item, and the other applicants for these grants, we don't see as important enough to make it a line item.
So I don't want to make it seem like staff is trying to get out of the work. I'm just saying that it's not a contract. I mean, to make it a contract, it would be a whole different operation request than what he's doing, and he would need insurance and all these other things. So to try to make it one, and actually would have a hard time with this. So we have a contract with somebody that's out working on the beach around people, but we're waiving the insurance requirement. And then when he gets hit with a $2 million requirement for the insurance, that's going to be, he won't be able to cover it.
All right.
That's a good response for that. That solves that. And I'm going to fall in that maybe a grant is a better way to do it. But I think it should be a grant then, in that case, as a grant for Sea Turtles Forever as a line item.
Did we have a grant agreement with the library?
Used to. Yeah, it used to be a grant program.
And actually it switched back and forth.
Yeah, I think it has. I think it has gone back and forth.
I mean, maybe it's okay to have some grants that go through the process and some grants that are just grants that you approve because they're important to the community.
Well, that's why I say we need a guideline for when we do it and when we don't do it, which I've asked for now a couple of years and haven't gotten it.
Well,
That
it
would take
falls,
care of that
then-
problem.
it falls into this committee, the budget, committee, to make that choice every time. Because we could say no to the library right now if we wanted to. We're not going to, but I'm just saying that's an option that the budget committee has.
But I'd like to be able to see a guideline that we could point to and say, this isn't meeting our request for you to,
And
meet this guideline.
that's something we probably could put in the code review, literally.
Well, we could potentially bring that to you at the next workshop.
Well,
But I don't know if it would.
I don't think it needs to be the next one, but in a future workshop.
Yeah.
Okay. Did we
Did
beat
I
that one to
successfully
death?
Withdraw all my motions.
I guess all the motions are down.
And you're in a lot of trouble.
And did I need to withdraw my second?
Did for the first second, made the second. So, with that, we need a motion for Bruce.
Does it help at all if you say that because of the confusion or whatever, that this is a one-time grant?
Yeah, I think we need to
will
say.
need to sort things out so that they understand that this is not a forever line item. So that everybody coming or might request later, you can say, no, this is a one-time deal. We've got some things to sort out.
Did you do this before out of the executive budget as a discretionary item?
I don't recall how it was done, and I remember that I was the one that had put that in, and I think it was taken out.
It was.
And it was under community programs.
Yeah.
And you couldn't do it that way?
No, y'all just took it out
We
and said,
said-
go get the grant through the parks.
Yeah.
Yeah, now we're not doing that either.
I like the idea of one time only, at least this year, one time only until we get guidelines to determine whether or not it's a permanent
Make
situation.
that an amendment.
Yeah.
Well, that's, I don't know how you do it.
No, it's not amendment. Just
No, we just put it in the minutes.
Okay, if it's in the minutes, I don't know if that's enough, but
I'd be willing to make a motion that we approve that as part of the budget with the understanding that a policy or something will be developed to say when things become part of the line item of the budget and when they don't. And to also require that he report on it at the end of the season, similar to how the library's reported.
It's a one-time. The only thing he's guaranteed is a one-time.
Yep, he's only guaranteed one time and he has to report on it at the end.
second that. If that's a motion.
It's a motion.
That's a mouthful.
We might have stumped Jennifer.
No, I gotta add in one time somewhere in here. One time. There we go. I think I got it all. I may need to word it a little bit better, but my typing didn't match.
So it's, yeah, it's
It's sort of a one-time budget with the understanding of a policy or guide that was supposed to be guide. Or when something is policy or guide to be created, when something is a line item or not, and to report on it at the end of the season, like the library.
okay.
I also have the audio too, which is good.
All those in favor?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, we got that.
Okay,
Who seconded?
we got 3 amendments then.
Mike. So at that point, I move to approve the budget committee action, which gives the approval.
Sam, I don't think we made the motion for making these changes, the dollar amounts to, with regard to the trees.
Yeah, we did.
We did?
There was a motion that was seconded and then we discussed it.
Oh,
Then we all voted aye
okay.
several times.
Okay, good. Just want to make sure.
Okay, so I will start again. I move to approve the budget committee action which gives the final approval of the city of Cannon Beach for the year 2022-2023 proposed budget document, including the amendments and by the Cannon Beach Budget Committee. Seconded. Final discussion.
All in favor?
Yes.
Yes.
I will vote yes, but I also want to make sure that there is a comeback to the percentage on the water. And so with the comfort of knowing that that actually will take place, I will vote yes.
Believe it or not, I'm even open to a special meeting, special work.
That's right. Yep.
Okay.
Want to discuss the meeting or get that scheduled?
This would be just the council,
Okay.
I think.
It would just be council. I just wanted to know if we wanted to get it scheduled.
The rates. We've adopted rates before without the
Without the
budget committee, right? Okay, yeah, then y'all are off the hook. It'll be council timing. Okay. I don't have any proposed dates. Maybe we need to send Brown a proposed date. We talk about next week.
You've got a bit of a lift to do, Bruce. Several possibilities. I think some of that maybe that you need to figure out what what's to be presented.
Okay. I'm just trying to get it done.
Attachment on it.
Oh,
So
yeah,
won't you
okay.
go worry?
Anything else, Layton, to- I think that's it.
Signature.
Yeah, that's it. You have it. When it says, doesn't say attachment on it.
That does. I think that's all right.
That's okay. Sign this one.
We adjourned?
I've not seen another chair glide through this kind of extension